trainings to make sure that these kinds of atrocities don't happen in the future, which Obama put into place. Yeah, and as far as people feeling like they don't have a choice, yeah, there's like people have tried every which way to protest what's going on, and none has worked. So it makes sense why people are.
Did you guys like Obama?
So we were both younger.
Yeah, we were both very
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 19 years old.
Okay.
I'm 23. Now in hindsight, he's not. There's a lot of things I strongly disagree with him on because I consider myself more leftist. But he's definitely 1,000 times better than I am.
He would be a leader. They're tear gassing. Everybody's running right now. All these people have just been standing there peacefully with their signs.
Yep.
We had this
We were
giant.
doing the same thing.
Yeah, we had this giant board, a whiteboard that we brought forward that said Black Lives Matter, and we gave it to some people to protect themselves because they were getting shot at with the rubber bullets.
So they were firing rubber bullets. I felt something
they were.
was.
Well, they
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
The guy who was holding our sign got hit by it.
Yeah, he got hit by a few. And so those aren't lethal, but they are very, very painful. They're like this thick.
Yeah.
Very, very thick and hard.
So aren't you glad that that there's been far fewer police black versus black incidents since President Trump has been president as compared to Obama?
So that doesn't, first of all, that doesn't seem accurate. And this space is no space for the talk of like black on black crime. That's
no,
just
it's not black on black crime. I'm talking about the white officers on black crime. Which
that seems to be a testament to the movement. I hope. I don't know the stats. Actually, but
it was much higher under Obama. It was
yeah. Where are you getting your information from?
actual research, like outside of the mainstream media. Media.
So what does that entail? Because I graduated from university and studied sociology, and so I know what peer-reviewed sources look like and how to database.
So the correction here that I'm looking for is that if Trump is part of the problem, I'm trying to find the solution, right? So you're saying we can't wait till November, but if we vote Biden in, Biden's track record on the black men and women to prison.
So let me start by saying, of course, Biden has been a politician for a long time. Trump hasn't. So, of course, the more negative things in terms of politically are going to be in his record. I'm not here to speak as a proponent for Joe Biden personally. That's not why I'm here. She did. I didn't, and I'm a different person. But here's the thing. What she meant by doesn't matter. We're almost done. What she meant by you can't just wait until November is that's oftentimes the resistance to people actually speaking out and using their rights to storm the street. Is that just use the bureaucratic process, wait your turn, and black people have been waiting their turn for a very long time, and we've tried. Yeah, and it depends on more than these voting processes. It depends on real movements, and this is a movement, and that's why I would say, sir, that the number of black people killed by police officers, if that is true, which I doubt it is. If it is true, I said if it is true, then that is a testament to the movement and not a racist in the White House. The Black Lives Matter movement. And the fact that you had to ask that question means that you're not really listening.
No, but it doesn't make sense because what you said was that the testament that Obama, or so you're suggesting that because under Obama, Black Lives Matter was created, and then it's calmed it. It made a difference. It made a difference. Is what you're saying. Is that what you're saying? I don't want to misunderstand you.
That you have to repeat the question. I'm sorry.
4 p.m. 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Thank you. What time is it now?
It is 12 minutes till.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4-minute curfew.
Okay, so
we should head out.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for talking, guys,
Thank
girls.
you.
Have a good one.
Trump exacerbates the issue. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, folks, that's our future. We got to get a little piece of that, okay? Because listen, when you're feeling bad about yourself and you're feeling bad about what's going on here, you can feel good that you're not so indoctrinated into the system that you're making those kind of statements.
The Capitol,
that
they
you
all
actually
congregated.
think that Joe Biden is going to be
They all
better
congregated right there on the
for
south steps of the.
perfect red pill time. But you know what I mean? That red pill, yeah, they would have choked on that one, guys. You gotta break it off in bits, right? They would have choked on that red pill if I had dropped that. So what I really wanted to do there is just to kind of certainly challenge them on some of this stuff, but that's the kind of level of people that you speak to that you're not going to get through to. And so that's just an example of the indoctrination. Both, by the way, she just graduated in sociology. Okay? Sociology. So if I'm not mistaken, I think that's kind of the study of society and people. Correct me if I'm wrong here. And yet they have no concept of what's really going on. And obviously disappointing, but if they just came out of university, it's no surprise. By the way, does anybody remember where I parked? I parked at a couple different places, but so Santa Monica has a 4 p.m. curfew. I didn't even realize it was that late, and I didn't even realize there was a curfew, but somebody came up and reminded me. I can, but you know, so that'll be interesting because there's a lot of people out here, and how are they gonna you know, arrest all these people? There's clearly, you know, 5 to 6 times as many people as there are police officers. And by the way, there's a whole group on the far side too. If you look down past the traffic lights, there's a whole group that they're holding from coming south to join our group. So they're in the middle of two very large sized groups. And Pacific. So it just goes to show you, I really should be getting going. Yeah, colleges have failed us, folks, and there's yeah. I think AJ took his pill home. I think he'll do some research on that. I'm sorry we got separated, and I was hoping to have that conversation with Brandon, but we got separated, and.
Onto 35 here to hopefully meet up with those people here who we believe to be injured. And now we've just got a caravan of police. And I'm here with a young man, Shane Harris, Reverend Shane Harris. You were standing on this bridge when this happened. Tell me what happened.
Well, we were here. We were a part of helping to facilitate, get folks organized. And we then realized I was walking up with a group and a contingent of organizers of this rally to meet the governor and mayor, when we then turned around and saw this humongous oil truck speeding straight through. The gas truck sped straight through, and immediately he would not stop. He kept going. He was at least going 70 miles an hour, went straight through the crowd. Never seen this before. It's egregious to see. I don't know what he was thinking. He saw those people. He saw those people there. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you here. Right now we're seeing this police vehicle here. You see an officer hanging out the back of that vehicle as well. They're in riot gear. They're getting out of that vehicle in riot gear. Now we're finally, seeing this road being blocked off from this direction. And Shane, I want to come back to you and just try to describe what the moments were like after that truck came through.
We were running down the ramp, literally trying to tell people to move. We were coming from here because we were set to meet the governor and the mayor. And we then realized, we turned around and saw this gas truck speeding straight through. And we were trying to turn around, but by the time we turned around,
there's just so much indoctrination in the mainstream media.
And he just wouldn't stop.
You can see now, you guys at home, all of these
Did you
police
see-
cars, one after another,
So
getting on
we've
at
queued up the
Washington here,
video
but
now.
they're-
We've queued up the video, Hannah, just hang on a second, of what happened earlier. This is right after the truck came through. It did stop there, as you can see, but prior to that, for a few seconds prior to that, it came in hot, came into that group of people. They parted like the sea, but we don't know if he hit anybody. All we know is at this point, many people jumped on that cab, jumped onto the semi, onto the tanker, to the back, and presumably removed the driver of that vehicle, because shortly after this, we could see a crowd of people on the top of your screen surrounding someone. And then a minute or so later, police moved in and started spraying mace, getting people away, and an individual was taken out of that crowd standing and placed into a cruiser.
Yeah, and they started spraying mace to get people out of the way. We don't know if anybody was hit by this tanker, and I want to make that clear. We're still trying to find out, because he came in so fast onto the highway, intentionally going through this crowd at a high rate of speed. We don't know if anybody was hit, and it would have been hard for everybody to move out of the way quickly. So we're trying to get as much information as we can. We know that MPD is there on scene and trying to get control of the situation.
It does beg the question, with the interstates closed, with everyone, MnDOT including, knowing that this crowd was there, where did that semi come from?
Yeah.
You know, where did that vehicle have the ability to get back onto 35W and directly head toward that very, very large crowd?
Facebook.
David
Thousands of
Snedeker,
people on that side of
S-N-E-D-E-K-E-R.
Oh, my name's also David.
Heading back
Wow.
south.
Awesome, David.
Well,
nice to meet you, brother.
Yeah, represent.
We
Awesome.
saw that crowd
All right,
start.
you guys.
Yeah?
Goodbye, chat. I love you guys.
All right, see you, man.
I think they're going to do the tear gas any moment.
So
not know,
I caught a little bit of that.
Did
and I
you
know
watch-
you were up front.
Did you watch the CBS guy?
No.
The news guy, every time he went live is when the tear gas started. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Both times.
Nice catch, brother.
So I got that on camera. Gonna expose that.
Awesome.
So I think the third time's coming around in like 2 or 3 minutes.
I agree.
And
Because it's curfew at 4. What time do you got?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's curfew.
it's 3:57.
So in 3 minutes,
It's gonna get good.
it's going to get good.
Yeah.
So,
So share
yeah.
right now.
So just so, yeah, exactly, because this is about to get
It's
good.
gonna be epic.
So do you think? By the way, my Twitch channel is The Indoctrination.
Okay.
And my show is called The Indoctrination.
All right.
So you can imagine
I just did
what
a
that's
commercial
about.
for Twitch.
We're big fans of Fox, MSNBC, CBS, ABC. You know, the real news.
Okay,
Yeah. So basically, we call out all the bullshit,
Okay.
right? You know, we calling out. You know, by the way, have you dug into the Floyd situation?
I did. There's a lot of conspiracies on that, and
Yeah.
we're going to dig into that a lot more. And then the arresting officer. There's 2 photos of him that don't look similar.
Yes. Exactly.
I don't know if you saw that.
But the booking picture didn't look at
Yeah,
like
they did. Yeah, it looked like his hairline was a lot longer, and the ears were different. And I think we're gonna blow up anyway. We got news crews going. But anyways,
And I saw everybody scattered, literally like everybody across the highway, and you see and hear the semi coming, and everybody just splits, and the semi starts swerving, trying to hit everybody, and it's like just swerving down the highway.
How fast? I mean, were people able to move?
They were moving pretty fast. He was coming pretty quick.
Thank you for talking. Let's get somewhere safe, okay? Yeah, so you can see here people who were on the bridge at the time are starting to come up. They're clearly shaken. They're clearly upset. People tell us that people were hit by this truck. I can tell you, we saw it coming down the highway. This truck was going fast. It was flashing at its horn, and who were on the ground at the time.
Thanks, Jack.
Swerving and zigzagging. I mean, and with 2,000 people or so packed onto a bridge, it was obviously hard for people to move quickly enough to get out of the way. From our vantage point, we can't really tell if there were people down there who are hurt. A lot of people have through that bridge now, especially this northbound lane.
Thanks, Carmel.
Going down. But again, people coming up here tell us they do.
Yeah, my Venmo is just Rod Weber, same as it is on Facebook. Make sure not to be Rob or Robert.
I saw police cars.
Just Rod.
Was that?
I have not seen any ambulances yet from where I am standing. I have not seen any ambulances. I've only seen police vehicles so far. And right now we're seeing actually a caravan of police head down Washington going the opposite way. So not sure what they're doing. They're all in riot gear, gas masks, face shields, heading the opposite way down Washington Avenue right now. So we're not sure. Maybe they're trying to get to a better vantage point. But that's what we're seeing out here, Kelsey. We've not seen an ambulance yet.
Anna, when you first heard that horn, you said you heard beeping. How much time before people had to react?
Not much, Randy, not much. If you can get an idea, we're standing on this bridge. I saw it just as it was emerging from under this bridge, and just where a little bit past where you see those police cars right now, and you see that crowd, they were a little bit further north on 35W. But that's as much time as they had to react from this bridge to just past where they're standing right now. Not much time to react, and like I said, with the crowd that big.
Across the street, you can see at signs and banners. There's posters there.
Minneapolis police just
George Floyd,
down this on-ramp and
black
started
owned.
spraying pepper spray out of their windows. This individual got pepper spray.
When I got pepper spray, when they were coming around the car, there was still a bunch of cars parked here. They deliberately drove into civilian cars, dented multiple cars, and lifted one car off the ground and churned it completely. And after that, when they were coming around that, they just pepper sprayed everybody.
They're coming up the ramp right now with tear gas. They're coming up the ramp right now with tear gas.
All right, Courtney, back off from that area. Back off from that area.
We're going to get to a safe location.
Okay, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of chaos right now here by 35W. Let's
Clearly,
just recap real quick what happened. We had a tanker truck that got onto the highway somehow, came barreling through the crowd. It is unclear right now if anybody is hurt, but people have said they think people got hit. And then a large group of people gathered around the cab of that truck, and we don't know what happened to the driver. We have Minneapolis police headed onto the interstate right now, and it is chaotic as people try to move. This is a crowd of more than 2,000 people. What law enforcement are trying to do is seal off that area. I mean, it's a crime scene, obviously, and they're going to seal off that area, and they're going to have to disperse the crowd. That's the only way they can make this happen. And compound that by the fact that there is nothing that could have happened that could raise the emotions of this crowd more than what just happened, what we witnessed, what all of you at home just witnessed. So this is a very, very volatile situation right now with what we witnessed just a few minutes ago, and we're just hoping, because I just don't see, I couldn't see it. I saw the group start to separate, and I saw that semi come through, but we just couldn't see from Skyfox 9 whether he hit anybody or not. We're hearing from people on the scene that some people were struck by that semi truck, a tanker. Hannah Flood is at the scene down there with people who were part of that. She joins us again now live. Hannah?
Yeah, I was just talking to a guy who showed me a video on his cell phone of someone climbing up onto the hood of that truck as it was coming through, and he said he saw a couple people get injured. He just could not tell how seriously. So right when we heard Courtney say that they were spraying pepper spray on the ramp, we saw just a huge plume of chaos, people running and screaming as a bunch of Minneapolis police officers started coming down what would be an exit ramp onto 35W going the opposite way. And we're seeing more police officers get onto that ramp right now. Of course, with so many people who were on the bridge, this is chaotic. A lot of people didn't have anywhere to go and were obviously scared after that truck came through with thousands of people on the bridge. So it looks like right now police are working to just block off this area, secure this whole area, hopefully prevent obviously any more vehicles from getting down this way. But it looks like they're just trying to clear everyone off of the bridge and hopefully bring medical aid to anyone down there who might need it right now.
If we can, let's go back up in the air. I think people at home need to see when Hannah says truck, what that means. It's actually a semi, a tanker semi. And you can, let's see from that vantage point whether you can see it or not. I don't know.
As it moves a little bit, well,
I don't know if the chopper's in the position to see it, but
yeah, let's replay the video.
Yeah, let's see, and get it back as far as you can, because you start to see people just part. Like, I couldn't figure out what they were doing, and you'll see. Well, this is way after the video. This is way after the tanker had come barreling in. This is just before he stops. Prior to that, you could hear and see the crowd, which was massive at the time, part, and then this semi just comes barreling in. And as you can see, as it was stopping, or being forced to stop, the crowd enveloped the cab of that vehicle, and the driver of that vehicle was extracted by members of that crowd. The last thing we saw was a group of people subduing or whatever. You can see at the top of your screen, the top right corner of your screen there. And a short time later, police arrived, and that individual was taken and put into a squad.
Yeah, and this is why MnDOT was trying to close the highways down at 5 o'clock, because they were trying to ensure the safety of these crowds in St. Paul and Minneapolis that were on the interstates. And we don't know where this tanker came from, how it got onto the interstate, but eyewitnesses have said it was going about 70 miles an hour. And as Hannah was interviewing somebody, that's when it happened, and we could hear it in the background. It was blaring its horn as it moved through this crowd. And from a traffic camera, we were able to see as it was moving still very rapidly through the crowd, people did not have enough time to get out of the way. And we are not sure if anybody was hurt. We haven't seen any ambulances down in this area yet, and we don't know what happened to the driver.
It's interesting to note, and that's the part that gives me a little bit of hope, that if people were hit, otherwise I feel like we would see rescue squads, rescue personnel, EMTs, paramedics in that area right there behind the vehicle. Once it cleared that overpass where Hannah Flood was, is when it would have barreled into what would have been a parting of the seas crowd, trying to move away from that vehicle. But you can see where it stopped. There was not a lot of room for people to get over that median barrier there out of the way. But just so fast and so alarming. I mean, we were watching it at the time, and it's just hard to fathom what the people there were seeing on the highway.
Well, the other thing is they said he was swerving, as if he was intentionally trying to hit people. And we're trying to figure out the name on the side of that truck, too. And we've got Hannah, who's been able to talk to some witnesses. So, Hannah, go ahead and take it over.
Okay, tell me what you saw when you were down there.
I recorded the whole thing. A semi-truck, everyone is being peaceful. A semi-truck ran through the protesters. It was fucking crazy. He didn't stop at all. I don't know who it was. Semi-truck didn't stop. And then after that, people started running. And then a black 4x4 truck, black, shiny finish, came right up here, up this exit. And everyone was running from that truck too.
So you're saying there was a truck that was coming the other direction?
Yes, a truck that was coming the other direction. I don't know who was in there. It looked like maybe 6 white arms were coming out of it. I don't know if they had guns. I don't know what, but it came up here and people were running from that truck too. I don't know what the fuck was going on. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
I'm trying to let people know.
Were
that
people
if you
able
need
to move fast enough?
No, the truck, everyone was right here. The truck was coming from so far back that he could have stopped so much earlier than he did. He ran through everybody, and it didn't look like I could hear his brakes until the last second. Everybody was trying to get out of the way as fast as they could. I don't know I don't know who's hurt. I'm trying to let people know that I can give rides to the hospital. If you guys need a ride to the hospital, please let me know. I need people to know that I can give rides to the hospital. If you see me around wearing this stuff, let me know. Like, the cops are coming, you know?
We're going to let you go because you have a job to do. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let them know.
As you can hear, chaotic here. And if you know someone that was out here, you should check on them just to make sure they're okay. Because as you heard her say, that truck was barreling through that crowd that was filled with people. We don't know how many people it was able to hit. So I want to show you the situation on the highway right now. We have law enforcement officers on one side of the highway. You've got protesters standing with their hands up on the other side of the highway. Guys, I've yet to see an ambulance come down this highway, but you can see a couple of metro, short metro transit buses. It looks like.
Hannah, just take a breath there and try to gather some more information. We're going to flip over to Fox 9 photojournalist Justin McCrae, who was also on the scene. Justin witnessed this truck come barreling in. Justin, tell us what you saw.
Randy and Kelsey, I have never seen anything like this before. I have just got here on the scene. I was here at Washington Avenue, and there was a gas semi truck heading northbound on 35, going at least 80 to 90 miles per hour. And he was blowing his horn consistently. And he ran straight into the crowd. People that were behind me as I was making my way to the highway were just hollering, and they were screaming and crying. And it is straight chaos. This is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this before.
Justin, I know that you're probably still in a bit of a state of shock. Can you hear me, Justin? I know that you're probably still in a little bit of shock having to see this. Could you tell from where you were if anybody got hit as fast as this truck was going?
Yes, Kelsey. I interviewed someone that was out there on the bridge. She ran back, and she told me that a young lady did get hit. There were a few people that got hit by that semi-truck.
Justin, when you first saw that truck come barreling in, what was the distance, Justin, from when you picked it up with your vision and hearing it until it would have made contact with that crowd? I mean, how fast did that thing, how much time did people have?
Randy, they didn't have much time at all. There were people up here at Washington, and I believe on Washington Avenue, and people were screaming. They was on here the bridge, like, move, move, move now. They had only seconds to get out of the way.
Hey, Justin.
They didn't have time.
Could you
They didn't have time, Randy.
You may have had a better vantage point, but once that truck did come to a stop, could you tell if they pulled the driver out of the truck and what happened when Minneapolis police did arrive? What happened to the driver? Do you have any information there?
I heard a few protesters that were out there. They believe I want to say I heard that he continued to went through, but I'm not for sure if they was able to pull him out.
Okay, it looks like
we're looking live now. Justin, just hang on there for a second. We're looking live now at that area above the scene where police are trying to disperse this crowd with tear gas, a method they would use on a crowd that would normally have gotten out of hand. This crowd, just, devastation and the emotion levels that they all have based on what they just witnessed. It's profound. It's just unreal what they would have witnessed down there. And then to have this sort of thing hit them out of nowhere is just hard to understand what would have been in the mind of that truck driver as he was barreling down that highway. And let's just be clear, we don't know what the circumstances are. First of all, we don't know how he got on a closed highway. And secondly, we don't know yet what the intentions were.
Yeah, so we're watching, they're trying to keep people off of 35W, off the bridge right now. And we're seeing tear gas being deployed into the crowds as they try to keep people away from the scene here. Justin, I know you're still with us. We know that Minneapolis police vehicles have arrived. Have you seen any National Guard or any other law enforcement presence getting down to that area? Any ambulances or any medics arriving?
Yes, Kelsey. Right now, you have the law enforcement that's our landing up right now here on Washington Avenue. When just minutes ago, before I got on, several law enforcement came down here on the ramp. So there's a bunch of police. That's a big presence here right now. So I mean, people right now they're crying. Kelsey, Randy, people behind me right now, they're in tears.
Understandably so, Justin. I know it's very emotional for a lot of people. It's just unbelievable. It's hard to fathom what they would have seen. Let's go back to Chopper Skyfox 9 there above the scene. Clearly now a very closed off area. About a half hour ago, folks, a very disturbing scene. A group of marchers, private group of just peaceful marchers going onto 35W, had been on 35W for a while, were making their way back toward US Bank Stadium, a couple thousand, maybe 3,000 people, and from the opposite direction facing them, so coming from the south on 35W, heading north, a semi-truck tanker barreled into this crowd. We do not know if anyone was injured or how bad anyone could have been injured or worse. All we know is that the truck did stop. The driver was extracted from the cab of that truck, and we do think, at least based on what we could see, that an individual was placed into a police vehicle at the scene.
And so this group started at US Bank Stadium earlier today, and then they moved on to 35W, and we think they were headed back to US Bank Stadium. We've been watching this afternoon two big groups of protesters that have been peacefully protesting, and the group in St. Paul moving. Okay, and Hannah, I'll get to you in just a second, but that group moving with St. Paul Police, and St. Paul Police saying to everybody, we are trying to ensure this group's safety. MnDOT trying to close the highways down earlier to ensure safety. And you can see these closed highways right now because these groups were on the highway and because they fear that there can be clashes between vehicles and people on the highway. So Hannah's been talking to witnesses. She was interviewing somebody actually as this tanker truck started barreling through the crowd. And Hannah, have you been able to kind of get a sense from the people that you talked to that saw this all unfold, what happened?
People that I've talked to said everything was just really chaotic. They told me they heard that truck before they saw it, and that was same for us. We heard a horn honking, but turned around and it was traveling so fast. People that we talked to say they just don't know that people had time to get out of the way. Right before you came to me, Kelsey, someone had shouted, this was a peaceful protest, and it was. There were families out here marching today. All day you've seen me here talking about how this was a call for unity. This was supposed to show the world that Minneapolis is peaceful, and now this happened and turned all of this into chaos. Justin said it earlier, we're seeing people obviously and understandably in shock and upset, people who say they saw what happened, people who say they only heard it. I want to show you now that some sheriff deputies here have blocked off what would be the exit from 35W heading south up onto Washington Avenue. So they've blocked that off, and a lot of people who were on the bridge are now starting to come up that ramp and leave. A lot of people that I've talked to have said, I don't know where my friend is. I lost my friend. Understandably, that would just be so frightening, so horrible. So a lot of confusion around here, a lot of chaos, but it looks like police now we've got more police moving in this big van here. So just a lot of chaos here as people trying to figure out what's going on.
It is hard to imagine a worst case scenario unfolding before everyone's eyes as they're peacefully marching on 35W there. It's just hard to imagine that this scenario ends a day of, as you point out, Hannah, peaceful protests that occurred in downtown, and then a separate one at the state capitol. Hannah, do you have someone there? You're looking like you have... No?
You can tell that there's just...
Sorry, we're just talking to people out here trying to figure out what they saw, but it's chaotic. A lot of people on their phones trying to hook up with their friends. I heard a lot of people in the crowd saying, regroup with your people. But now, as you can imagine, there's a chaotic amount of traffic of just people who would normally be coming through here traveling right now kind of without anywhere to go. So that traffic jam, along with all of the people, the fear, the confusion, is causing some chaos over here, absolutely and understandably.
Yeah, just for our viewers who may be joining us, what you're seeing is the aftermath of an incident that occurred about a half hour ago. The day started out in peacefully protesting in downtown Minneapolis, rally more really than a protest. And the same thing over in St. Paul at the state capitol. Two groups started marching. One group marched on westbound 94 toward Minneapolis. They got off on Lexington Avenue and stationed themselves on University Avenue in St. Paul. This group came from Minneapolis, US Bank Stadium, made their way through downtown, were hooking around onto 35W, heading back toward US Bank Stadium when, coming from the south, as they were heading south, coming from the south, a semi-truck heading north barreled into a very large group of these protesters. This is a new shot of the scene there now. Law enforcement moved in very quickly and dispersed the crowd, and now are closing off the entire area, as you can imagine, to anyone who is still in that area. This is our Justin Craze camera on the ground there. Outside, back up on above the interstate, back up above 35W, above the scene where all this unfolded.
And this was a peaceful protest. They were marching, and there were no problems. They were going to likely get off of the interstate at some point. Law enforcement trying to keep the situation as safe as possible. MnDOT closing down highways because we also had a large group in St. Paul that was marching. And now there's just utter chaos after this tanker
no
truck
justice,
is
no peace.
driven into...
Black Lives Matter. And some of his signs also quite common. White silence equals violence. Justice for George Floyd. So I don't know if you can hear, but some people in their cars are honking in support, so protesters are cheering back.
Two photographers who are with me, we got tear gas. We just had to, that's why you haven't seen us for a while. We had to regain our composure because let me tell you, that is the first time that I have had any experience with tear gas, and our eyes were completely watering and our lungs were taking over so much that you find it hard to breathe.
Thanks everyone for joining.
I will tell you from the other people here who were tear gassed besides ourselves, lots of people in this crowd. Lots of people
I'm live today
too. We just talked to
from Brooklyn.
Two young
the
girls
fourth day of protest in New York City.
On the freeway,
in New York
and
side.
As MPD came
following
through,
George
they
Floyd's
were spraying
death.
that tear gas and firing rubber bullets. Apparently, you can see the welts on their neck.
Many
Huge
rallies
welts.
happening
And
across the
obviously,
city.
they're very shaken up. They're in tears. What happened
happened here is we heard Hannah in my ear say there's a semi that just came barreling through, and I'd say, what guys, 5 minutes later, 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes later, people started running back towards us at University. And shortly thereafter, Minneapolis police officers came down the on-ramps and down the off-ramps, both sides. And as they came barreling down, they were spraying tear gas out their windows. And apparently, according to some accounts here, they were also firing bullets. Now, once they got set up and they blocked off the freeway, some people were still trying to go down. And at that point, they continued to fire tear gas. We saw many people with their hands up. And a few more canisters still went off, and that's when we got sprayed with the tear gas. So very volatile situation out here, but we continue to monitor it.
Courtney, are you still in an area where the protesters are still being dispersed, or is everyone out of that area now, other than the motorists that I can see?
Oh, no, Randy, there are still hundreds, easily, protesters. We just stepped back from the on-ramp just so that we could regain our composure after getting gassed. But there are still lots of people there on the on-ramp, and they are not going anywhere. They don't seem deterred. Obviously, there's some around us who have stepped back just to clean out their eyes and to take a breather, but they're not going anywhere. They are not deterred.
I think what I hear from a lot of protesters sort of in the background, and some that we've actually talked about, is they're surprised and shocked that their peaceful protest turned into this. In fact, in a sort of accusatory way, they're saying we were just protesting and then somebody did this to us, and that's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. And I think the concern moving forward right now is, what does this mean, and what does that mean for those who were going to protest peacefully? What now?
Well, you know, look, Randy, we heard earlier in the day from officials saying we're going to get an earlier start on this than they did last night, and maybe that's what this was. Otherwise, maybe it was them trying to get to that scene, to secure that scene. We just don't know. All we know is that the officers came down the on-ramp firing tear gas and some rubber bullets, according to some witness statements.
There's a huge showing of law enforcement right now. Our camera's showing they might be sheriff's deputies in riot gear, and they're blocking off all of the entrances onto 35W right now to keep people away from the scene of what happened here. And if we can get our chopper shot back again, you can see just all of the law enforcement that have now arrived and trying to sort all of this out. What was a peaceful protest all day long has now turned into chaos and confusion and a crime scene, as a tanker drove into this crowd on 35W just a short time ago. And the details that we don't know right now are, how did this truck get onto the highway when the highways were supposed to be closed at 5 o'clock, what their intention was. We still have not confirmed if anybody was hurt, but we, as Randy pointed out, we haven't seen any ambulances going down there, or any paramedics administering any aid to anybody. And we don't really know what happened to the driver during this point. But they have built a wall of law enforcement individuals to keep people away from this area.
I think what there's a strategic planning area of the state right now. Brought that up last week when things turned sour, when things turned bad. Moving in the riding began in South Minneapolis, and at that time they were hearing that some outside forces were coming to play here in Minnesota. Again, I want to remind
You with the gun thing. With the gun thing. Orange ready. Orange gun. Hey, orange gun. Oh, yeah, you You're really taking care of business. Get ready, guys. Hey, orange gun. They're on the radio. They're waiting for the call. It's been peaceful. They're getting ready to attack us. Same race. Nobody has to stand up. All of these. All of these. All These are people. These are people. At the end of the day, I hope that these men took their jobs so that they can make a change. Hands up. Don't shoot. This is not working. You need to go about it a different way. You need y'all with us. You can't do it alone. The man Basil should be here. Yes, the man Basil should be here. Hands up. Don't shoot. 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 So y'all can't even tell us what you're trying to accomplish, brother? Like, what was the point of bringing us out here? They're stopping us right here on this road. They do a check-in with you, they do, sir? They do a wellness check-in with you? I hope they did a wellness check-in. I hope they Man, we want to have faith in y'all. We need y'all on our side. We really do. Y'all can't even take a knee with us or nothing like that. Y'all can't speak out if they tell you to do something that's wrong. Y'all can't speak out for what's right. That was never an option. While we in the contract, we signed with Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Up until that moment when that truck came through the crowd, and that's what we saw today too, and I mentioned it earlier, and I think it's important. This was a peaceful protest that children were at as well. The organizers at the beginning said, we want this to be so peaceful that your 90-year-old grandma would want to be here. So that was the message that protesters were giving all day. That's what was happening here until that moment when we were live, when we were interviewing that young man and heard that horn and saw that truck just come barreling through that group of people.
Okay, Hannah, we do have some new video of what happened on Twitter here of this tanker truck coming through this crowd. This is a new vantage point. You can see how quickly people are moving out of the way. There's chaos, people screaming, trying to move across, and there comes the truck.
The truck then carried through the crowd there, and it stops there. That's the point at which people climbed onto the vehicle. And as you heard Tyler, our witness there, say, the driver was taken from that cab, and then in terms of what she saw, was arrested. We did see that earlier. We saw a crowd of people take somebody, what appeared to be take somebody out of a cab and then surround them. And then when law enforcement moved in, that crowd was dispersed with tear gas and mace, and a person that we saw not wearing a shirt at that point was escorted by police across the interstate to one of the police vehicles.
Mm-hmm. The governor is going to brief the public on the situation at 7 o'clock, so in about half an hour he'll speak, and we may perhaps get better information at that point. And here's another shot of the truck. This is Hannah's camera, the truck going through that crowd, and we've consistently heard from people that Hannah has talked to that one girl was hurt, and then you heard her interview Tyler there a minute ago saying that she believes that the girl was transported to the hospital. And we haven't seen a major ambulance present, so we're just hoping that everybody's okay.
There is a shot, and I don't know if our producers can find that shot, because I was looking at the large monitor in the studio at the time when I was confused by the fact that I saw that crowd part The semi wasn't in the frame yet. It was shot from the chopper, and you start to see this crowd part for what appears no apparent reason, and then a half a second later, you do see the semi. That shot is out there somewhere because I saw it. But let's get back to Hannah Flood. She's live on the scene still with eyewitnesses. Hannah?
Tell the story.
I'm with Priska and Laverne, and you guys were down there when this happened. You were telling me what happened to the people who were hit immediately after that truck came through.
After the truck came through, people were hurt. They ran him over. There was no flow of traffic after the truck, but the cops were right after him. Listen, not one cop went down there to check if anybody was okay. Not one cop asked if anybody was okay. Us as people, got the injured people into a truck that was with us and onto safety. They're probably at a hospital right now.
So I'm sorry, the people who were hurt were put into a truck that was with you, with the protesters.
And escorted peacefully to the nearest hospital. But not one cop cared about that. Not one cop still asking about that.
Do you know how many people were hurt? How bad?
I didn't see how many people. It was just a rush of people, and instantly everyone got together like, we're gonna get you over. And to this point, it's like, what can we do? We can't be peaceful. You don't like it when people riot. What can we do to make a statement without people getting hurt, without people possibly losing their lives?
If I can say one thing, I did see a woman and a young boy weeping.
Please come this way, I want you to be safe.
Thank you. Weeping because her son got hit by that semi that came down 35W. We came in peace. That's all I gotta say. We came in peace.
You were here today. Tell me about what the protest was like up to this point.
It's been incredible and like an outer body experience to see everyone in the community come together for one thing. Everyone coming together, there's no nonsense. Like everyone's just happy, and to see all of that, like, why are you tearing us down? We're not disrupting you. We're not taking anything away from you. We're fighting for our rights. We're fighting for equality for everyone. So why do you want to hurt us? We're not hurting you. And then the cops are coming around, like, coming for us. We didn't do anything. Like he said, you didn't check if anybody was hurt. You just came over and like started like walking up with your guns and your pepper spray. Like, what can we do?
I'm so glad you're safe. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. You guys, I think we are going to just let you go here because it looks like they're continuing to try to clear people out of this area, and we don't want to get roped up into a place that we're not supposed to be. So we're going to send it back to you for just a minute here. All right, Hannah, thank you. Justin McCrae, also our photojournalist on the scene, is with some other eyewitnesses. Justin, what we've heard so far is one person injured. That's just an eyewitness account. We just really don't know. Go ahead and tell us what you have there, and give us an update on what these folks saw.
Hey, Randy and Kelsey, you guys talked about earlier that you didn't send an ambulance. Somebody was hit. So there was a truck that was out there. The protesters actually took that injured person and rushed that person to the hospital because they couldn't wait. But I have Billy and Leah. Buddy and Leah that's here. That was out there. Buddy and Leah, please tell me, what did you get? What did you see?
So we were up there. We were standing on the center island thing with PJ and the leaders of the protest, and we had just called for the governor.
See what looks like
at 8 o'clock.
Somebody was brought over by fellow protesters.
Asked for a moment of silence.
We have also been seeing a lot of people providing the protesters with water, with food, with supplies, supporters along this area,
50 to 80 miles an hour.
Trying to
and he barreled into the crowd, and luckily everybody was able to move away fast enough, but there was one girl that did get hit. We carried her to the vehicle. My boy drove her to the hospital right away. And they said that it could be explosive, which is what the main reason they wanted us all off of the bridge, because they say that it's an explosive tanker and that it could blow up. So that's really what they say they want us off the bridge for. But
Leah, this has to be very devastating for you to see.
Yeah.
For you to see this.
Yeah, it was, I would say, hands down the most disgusting display of humanity I've ever seen. That's all I really got on that. Like, I'm at a loss for words. It was...
And where were you actually?
I was standing right next to him, so everything he saw, I saw.
Can you give everyone at home the perspective of how you literally had a few seconds to get out of the way because that truck was coming so fast?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it up the road, and people were sitting. They were sitting down, and he was not letting up. He was there to kill. And the moment I saw the girl like under the truck, I kind of went blank for a minute, honestly. Like I couldn't believe what I was seeing right in front of me, just a few feet away.
Hey, Justin. Justin, we're going to
children missing.
Yes,
as well.
so
We're going to come back to you in just a minute.
Go
We do
ahead,
have an
Kelsey.
update from Minneapolis police right now. They're saying no protesters hit or hurt, but we've heard repeatedly from people who were there that one woman was hurt and then taken by the protesters themselves to the hospital.
There would likely be a disconnect there between MPD if that person was actually taken off the scene
right
away.
Know.
They wouldn't even know this yet. So that could change. The driver, as you said, taken to the hospital, though. And this is that scene that we're describing, although this is about a second after it came barreling through the crowd, stopping. And this was when the crowd encircled the truck, opened the cab doors, presumably removed the driver, because shortly after this we could see a crowd of people around an individual. And then a few seconds later, when police rolled up very quickly, that crowd was dispersed and someone was escorted across the highway and into a police cruiser. The whole thing is just unfathomable for people who would have been there peacefully protesting. And you can hear it, Kelsey, I can hear it. I can hear the accusation in the response from the people that were there. Many people there are going to assume that this was a targeted crowd, a targeted protest, a targeted peaceful protest.
This is the scene earlier.
This is what I saw when I was watching the monitor, and I couldn't quite figure out what was happening until then.
And there's the truck
then it
moving
became
through the
very
crowd.
clear.
And you can still, I think, see somebody up near where the truck stopped at that moment. Again, Minneapolis police not sure what the intention of this driver was. And we learned from those witnesses that they're telling people, we don't want you on this bridge because there could be potentially an explosive with this tanker truck. So they're trying to get everybody out of that area because they don't know what the intention was of this driver going through the crowd. And you hear the frustration of the protesters who say, you know, we were here peacefully and and through the support of law enforcement, trying to support them and make sure that they were safe on these highways today. Because they worry about clashes between vehicles and people when they're on the highways. But the frustration from the protesters who say we can't protest peacefully.
Kelsey,
this is the driver.
This is that point where a group had surrounded presumably the driver in the middle of that. If we hang with the video, if we can, we will eventually see law enforcement pull up, and you will see the crowd disperse, and I can't remember exactly how long after what we're seeing here this happened, but you definitely see it from a different angle. It'd be from the opposite side of the screen. You see this group dispersing. It appears to be they're making it very difficult for this person to be on that highway right now, and it took law enforcement to clear them away before being able to get that person in their cruiser. We're back to live now above the scene, Skyfox 9. You can see the tanker still there, backing up tow truck to it. Remove it. We do not know if it's a full fuel tanker or not.
We're trying to get the name of the company. We haven't been able to get a good view of the side of this truck. We're trying to get the name of the company.
I think one of those protesters, one of the witnesses, said it best when law enforcement came in. The concern was that this was a fully loaded tanker that someone had the intention to do massacre.
And so we saw the chaos that happened afterwards as they quickly tried to move 2,000 people off of the 45W bridge, and they were deploying tear gas to try to get people to move quickly and bring in law enforcement to block off this area. What had been a very peaceful protest and very organized is just turned into utter chaos this evening.
Governor Tim Walz will have a presser, we call it a presser, it's a press conference coming up at 7 o'clock. The details will be obvious. He will address this. We may find out more information Again, I think there's an awful lot that has occurred in the last 45 minutes that we just aren't going to know for some time. We certainly aren't going to know what was in the mind of that truck driver. We don't know how that truck got on.
Protesters right now are in Brooklyn. This group of protesters is one of many groups in New York City.
35W bridge.
At the moment, protesting against, following the death of George Floyd.
If eyewitness
and this started at the Barty Center. People have been gathering there for the past couple of days, and like today since 1 p.m.
was taken away privately from the scene very quickly in a pickup truck.
And
MPD reported just
another group of protesters
no protesters
joined them at 7 p.m.
But they say that with caution because if that person was taken away in a private vehicle, they likely wouldn't know about it.
They don't have a record of it, right? And because people who were there had
on 14th Street.
They said they just moved.
Correction, north on 14th Street, and it seems like that's where many of the focus of the protest is happening right now. Lorenzo?
I do want to reiterate for those of you just joining us as well. Again, D.C. Will be under a curfew this time around, like a lot of other big cities across the country. In about 3 hours and 15 minutes. It goes into effect at 11 o'clock and will last until 6 a.m. Monday. Again, earlier, Mayor Bowser, this is a change. Some of you may have heard that there was not a curfew in D.C. because that was the case for most of the day. But as we have seen tensions escalate over the last hour or two, Mayor Bowser thought it was necessary to enforce a curfew this time around, just because things appear to be getting heated and going in the same direction as they did this time yesterday, which is what they're trying to, they don't want to see that happen again.
Okay, so I'll just give you another situational of what's happening out here live. Again, we've been seeing, this is 14th and 8th Street. We've been seeing more of the protesters start heading north along 14th Street, approaching the police wall over there. When I say police wall, I'm talking about police officers forming a wall with a bunch of glass with their plastic shields, trying to see what's going on there.
The woman with the bullhorn, what is she saying? She seems to be leading part of this group.
I'm sorry, Lorenzo, I did not catch that.
Can you hear me, Nathan?
A little bit. Things are a little loud out here.
I was trying to figure out what the woman with the bullhorn was saying.
You start hearing the chant, "Our streets, our streets." Right now, the police wall is again along at 14th and H on both the east side and also along the north side. Again, this is a very somewhat chaotic situation, but not as chaotic as what it was half an hour ago. And the reason why is because we don't see as many of the people. There were a small number of agitators that were basically kicking in police car windshields. That hasn't happened at this point in the past half hour. So the situation has been calming down, although what we now have is this struggle for the heart of 8th Street along 14th, and then you also have another barricade along 15th that would be closer to the White House. So this all started about half an hour ago, whenever there was a group of people that wanted to go from the White House to the Trump Hotel. They were taking along their path down 8th Street, and then when you had about one or two people vandalize a police car, that's when the police officers started to just take over 8th Street and push people along. And that is what we're seeing right now.
And this is really interesting to watch as well, Nathan, because we keep talking about these protests, some of these agitators, and you're really in the middle of this crowd here, and you can see that some people are trying to stay peaceful. Some people are standing around with their signs. Some people join in with these chants. But here and there, you do have the people weaving in and out of this crowd and starting trouble, bluntly speaking.
Right. It comes down to there's different groups of people out here, just by observation. So you see the people that are here with their signs, with their loudspeakers, and they are here for a social message, for a message that the killing of George Floyd has got them out here on the streets. In many cases, it's part of the Black Lives Matter movement. A very diverse group of people here. We also have been seeing a lot of the supporters. Let me kind of show you right over here. We have a sit-in. People are now sitting down right in front of the police officers here along H and 14th Street, taking a knee in many cases, a sign, but also what you see here for the first time, because now the crowd is down, you see across 8th Street onto 15th Street, and you see another group of people doing the same thing.
Hey Nathan, can your photographer zoom in to the front of this protest here, because I can't see, I'm not sure if that's DC police or another
if you
agency.
Can zoom in a little bit toward the front here. Lorenzo, we're going to get you that zoomed in picture really quick, just to show you what they are saying.
So it looks like police are keeping them contained to this intersection. Any word, Nathan, as to why they're not allowed to go down in the other direction?
I'm sorry, please repeat your question, Lorenzo.
I'm not sure what you can see behind these police officers standing guard here, but is there a reason why they're not being allowed to travel down this road, this direction? What's back there?
So Lorenzo, let me give you an idea of what's happening behind, and this just to give you kind of a situational awareness of this situation. So I'm on H and 14th Street over here. This originally started along H and 15th Street, which is on the other side of that expanse where you see no protesters and a flashing police car light. Now, that block over there, approximately half an hour ago, was whenever you had one or two protesters start to kick in a police car windshield. And at that point, that's when the police started to take over 8th Street and 14th and 15th Street. And then there is nothing in particular along this block other than they are just taking over street blocks. Now, we haven't seen any more action happen in the past half hour when it comes to the police department taking over a block. But what could change is if we start seeing some water bottles or other projectiles being thrown at the police, because that seems to be what compels police action with the flashbangs. You hear the protesters call out the names of those recently killed in police custody.
Now! We want to show the police to get
Lorenzo?
Yeah, just taking in this moment, kind of listening to what some of the people there on the ground with you, Nathan, are saying. What I'm also noticing, and what a lot of people have pointed out all day watching the protest unfold here in DC, is the diverse makeup of these crowds that we are looking at here.
Sorry, Lorenzo, I couldn't hear your last question. Some of the my earpiece, sometimes I can't hear as well in this crowd. If you had a question, please repeat it.
No, it was just an observation, Nathan, about the diversity of this crowd here. A lot of people have noted the same who have been watching our coverage, and just talking about the people who we have seen out there throughout the day today.
Well, so Lorenzo, just in the past minute or two, we've still been seeing this group of people they're kneeling down, repeating, "Don't shoot." We also see something similar
okay,
happening
Nathan,
along
if you can
this
just
other
stand by
side
for us for a minute,
on
and
H
those of
and
you
15th.
watching us here
We are
on
on H and
Facebook and
14th
around, we're going to
Street.
update folks on television really quickly.
And so the
Good evening, everybody. I'm Lorenzo Hall with WUSA 9 from our studios here in Northwest Washington. We want to update you on the situation right now unfolding in downtown Washington. A number of the protests taking place over George Floyd, the man who was killed in Minneapolis earlier this week. What you're looking at right now is along 14th and 8th Street in D.C. This protest has been underway here for roughly 45 minutes or so. The folks there have moved away from the White House. We've been showing you some of what's been happening there all day, and you can hear them. Let's listen to what they're chanting at the moment. Black Lives Matter. They've also been chanting hands up, don't shoot. Now, what you're going to see in just a moment, once our photographer starts to pan around to the area where this crowd is facing, you have a group of officers. They've formed a human chain. They're just blocking these protesters from moving away from this area. Now, you're seeing a lot more police out on the streets right now in some of that riot gear, trying to prevent what we saw yesterday. Also, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has ordered a citywide curfew, which goes into effect at 11 o'clock tonight. So in about 3 hours, the city will be under a curfew until 6 a.m. Monday. Earlier today, Mayor Bowser said she didn't see the need for a curfew because she figured the people who caused a lot of the chaos in the city last night wouldn't abide by a curfew anyway. But as tensions started to escalate in D.C. throughout the night, the mayor did feel a need to order that curfew again, which goes into effect at 11 and expires at 6 a.m. And this is why, because of what you're looking at here. These protests, by the way, have been largely peaceful. I do want to point out that fact. But this is exactly what we saw yesterday. They were peaceful, they were at the White House for a bit, and then they started to disperse to other parts of the city, and that's when you saw those small groups looting from businesses, damaging Secret Service and DC police cars. So they want to make sure that's not going to happen this time around. So again, this crowd you're looking at here at 14th and 8th Street, which is just a few blocks away from the White House, I want to point out as well. They traveled here about 45 minutes or so ago. They have been peaceful. They've been chanting in front of some of the police officers who have lined this street as well. There have been a few flash bangs. If you've heard any loud bangs going off, if you live in Washington and within proximity to this intersection here, there's a good chance you did hear some of those flash bangs. And police have engaged with one or two protesters, but outside of that, this is what we have been witnessing. A lot of people just chanting and making sure their voices are heard. But again, police, the Secret Service, U.S. Park Police, the National Guard has also been activated by Mayor Bowser. They want to make sure this is not a repeat of last night when a lot of those businesses in this area had to wake up to a lot of damage. And also you had 11 DC police officers injured. So trying to prevent that, but this is the situation happening in Washington right now, one of several protests happening throughout our region today. But we're going to keep watching this. We're going to keep streaming this in our WUSA 9 app as well. And we are also streaming this on Facebook and getting some analysis and other perspective from our crews there on the scene. But for now, we will send you back to 60 Minutes. We'll see you soon.
This has been a special report from WUSA 9. For continuing coverage, go to WUSA9.com or download our mobile app.
Unfolding in downtown Washington, a number of the protests taking place over George Floyd, the man who was killed in Minneapolis earlier. All right, folks, thank you for being here with us again. On Facebook, we had to update some of those joining us on television, give them an update on the situation we've been following in D.C. Ready to get back to our Nathan Baca in just a minute. Some of you were watching the scene unfold there on 14th and 8th Street in downtown D.C., and we want to get back to that image right now. And you can see the folks still marching. They appear to be moving along at this point. They were pretty much stationary for a good minute there at the intersection. Nathan, any word on where this group is heading? Okay, we don't have our Nathan Baca at the moment. But again, these protests have been largely peaceful, some of what we've been witnessing right here. And it's very good for us to witness this firsthand because there have been a lot of accusations about some of the protesters and some of the people here who are trying to get their point across about police brutality, the injustices, and also remembering George Floyd as well. So what we've been seeing in this crowd are some of those people that you and I are both looking at right here with their signs, just trying to get their point across. And it looks like we lost that image there. Live television here, technology, they're moving along. But I need to point out too that the city again is under a curfew in about 3 hours from now at 11 o'clock tonight, and that will go until 6 a.m. They're trying to prevent a repeat of what we saw last night and some of what we saw on Friday night as well. But that was largely contained to the White House complex when some of those protesters were allowed to get a lot closer, and they sort of engaged with Secret Service more than they would have liked. But I'm going to wait for a minute for us to get our Nathan Baca here just to see where they are heading. Again, they were all at the White House for most of the day. I'm not sure if there are still protesters kind of lingering near the White House at this point, but Nathan was telling us earlier that some of them did move along away from that complex and decided to go to other parts of the city. Now, in addition to what we've been seeing there again on 14th and H, what we saw at the White House, there's also been a protest at the Lincoln Memorial. Quite a different scene there. Our Delia Gonzalez, she is there live for us right now. And Dee, what's been the mood there? Seemed relatively calm when we saw you earlier.
Absolutely, and it remained calm, Zoe, throughout the whole hour and a half of this rally and then prayer vigil. In fact, we had a healing circle that started at 3 earlier today, and then these protesters marched their way from the MLK Memorial, Washington Monument, made their way here to the Lincoln Memorial around 6 o'clock. We even heard from a local pastor who prayed with everyone. We heard from mothers who said this is not an organized group, simply just a group of moms, a group of concerned residents who said we need to do something positive, constructive. And so they said this was a peaceful vigil. They were imploring folks to remain peaceful. There were several times during the event that they paused when folks heard some commotion and repeated their phrase, cautioning folks, urging people to remain peaceful, and that they did not want to muddy their mission and the message, which was about police reform, calling for common sense police reform, they say. And so I wonder if I can just chat with you for a second, because you're one of the organizers?
I'm not. I'm not an organizer.
Oh.
I teach deaf people.
Could I? You were the interpreter. Can I just chat with you? I'm Delia from Channel 9. We're live.
Really don't want
Okay, no? Okay, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. What was really powerful, and I was hoping she would talk, is that we had a number of activists who were, a number of deaf activists who were signing here at the steps of the memorial, and she was doing such a wonderful job translating for all of them. They had such powerful messages. You can see here, if we can make our way through the legs of the crowd, there is a makeshift memorial of sorts for George Floyd. There's a poster board with his picture and some flowers. Organizers had buckets of flowers and candles for folks to lay down at this makeshift memorial. So more than just a protest, more than just a rally, this was a memorial for a man who lost his life, a man who they say is more than just a name, more than just a statistic, someone who was loved, a child, a son, a brother, a father, someone who was well loved in his community in Texas. And you can say that about so many of these lives that we've lost, more than just names, more than just numbers. It is the pain, the culmination of pain that folks have been feeling over some time. And they're saying, and then I've talked to folks who said, this is a turning point. We believe that, and we pray that this peaceful demonstration means that we've turned a corner. Yeah. And that perhaps the evening protest will be peaceful as well. And so, Zoe, I know we've seen a lot of disturbing images, and I know you've kind of ushered us through a lot of the really heavy images that we saw last night, and our colleagues who were out in the field as well. But I think everyone is praying that this will be a new day and that it'll be a peaceful day as well.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here savoring your live shot here for us, Dee, because like you said, we have been watching sort of the chaotic scenes, and those images of last night are playing back in my head. And I remember staring at the television trying to make sense of it all. It's like, wait, what is this about? How does this work? What are you doing? You know? And I'm sure a lot of people at home are doing the same. So I'm looking at your scene here at the Lincoln Memorial right now, this peaceful moment. People process these moments differently. Not everyone has to protest. People can take action in different ways. And it's just sort of refreshing to see this taking place in our city as well, not too far away from some of the chaos we've been seeing for the last couple of nights.
And you bring up a good point, Zoe. Not everyone has to protest. Everyone has to process this their own way. And we talked to a lot of folks who said, you know, maybe it's not going to be you protesting, but maybe you'll come to our healing circle. Maybe you want to share, but maybe you just want to sit and be amongst people and process the last 24, 48 hours. You know, I watched the coverage last night from home, and we too were at a loss for words. And we know that Black Lives Matter and the folks who originally organized were not involved. Many of them were not involved in some of the images that we saw last night of the destruction of our own city. And the mayor said, certainly everyone has a right to protest, but no one has a right to destroy our city. We've been hearing that sentiment being echoed throughout the country. You know, Killer Mike, the rapper, was so profound and had a similar message to the folks in Atlanta to say, let's use this moment to catapult us into action. So folks are saying, let's take this anger, frustration, sadness, everything that we're feeling, and let's mobilize. And let's try to act and create some kind of change.
Yeah, and I
think
of,
you know, Zoe, we were talking about the.
No,
go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, I was going to say you were talking about the scenery here, right? And the scenery, when we first got here, Tiffany and I mean, it was stark. It was stark to us. And very different, because we saw, you know, the healing circle. We saw a couple of protesters with signs. We saw joggers. We saw tourists. We saw high school graduates in their cap and gowns taking pictures. We saw young ladies in their prom dresses taking pictures. It was odd. Life goes on, and everyone processes in their own way. We did talk to a lot of those young people. I talked to the young girls who said, you know, we do need to celebrate our own milestone, but we know that the world is in turmoil. And so everyone is, I think, trying to take a little bit of hope, if they can find it, a little silver lining, a little peace. And I think this event brought that to a lot of folks.
And I keep thinking of those tourists tonight, Dee, as well. We saw some people kind of straggling along near the White House, and I thought, you know, what's happening there may be too intimidating for them. They may not ask questions. They may not approach anyone on the street there just because it's so intense. But you have a situation like this, your location, they can walk up to this memorial, this makeshift memorial for George Floyd, talk to some of the people there who may be more approachable than what we've seen at some of the other locations, and maybe walk away with a different perspective. So maybe that's my wishful thinking, but it seems like that is likely there. All right, Dee, thank you so much. You stay safe.
It certainly feels like there's.
Yeah, go ahead, get that thought out. I don't want to cut you off.
It certainly feels like the delay, right? This happens even when we're on the set together, Zoe. You're always talking over me. But we both have a lot to say. We're both passionate. We both love this city. You're a native of D.C. I'm raising 3 natives, and I love this city. We want to see our city heal. We don't want to see last night. So yes, it's hopeful and wishful thinking, but I think we are up to the challenge. Yeah. And from what I saw here, there was a lot of positivity, a lot of great conversations happening, and so it does give me hope that we'll move on and move forward with a renewed sense of purpose.
All right, Dee, thank you so much. You stay safe. Thank you for this moment of Zen. We appreciate you. Stand by as well. We'll check back in with you in just a couple of minutes. But now we want to go back to the scene over at the White House, our Charlotte McBride. She's been there for a good portion of the afternoon and evening as well. And Charlotte, what's it like there?
Well, it had emptied out a little while ago, and they had marched up H Street up to 15th, and now they've come back here. So just in about the last 10 minutes or so, I can tell you it's really started to fill in. But it's been a lot of positive chants, a lot of positivity that we've been hearing. I want to, if I could, I've been hearing you, and you've been leading the way, leading a lot of these chants. What do you hope to accomplish here today, and what have you been telling this crowd?
The main thing that I've been saying is I don't want us to be looked at as rioters or looters. We're protesting passionately. We're passionate people. And what I think needs to be recognized is that this country has a history of enslaving, beating, brutalizing, and killing black people for centuries in this country. So instead of really chastising us and questioning the nature of our protests and the way that we respond to actions, I think it's important to recognize who has set the tone and forced our hand to respond in the way that we have, in the same ways that you have with our people for centuries.
And I see you've been out here a lot, and you've been able to lead this crowd, and I think it's with that positivity and that positive nature. Is that what you're hoping to bring here today?
It's
change.
I'm sorry, change?
You're trying to bring change.
Absolutely, we're trying to bring change, and if it can't be heard peacefully, we're going to have to be louder than what we have been before. I think the main goal here is just to be heard, to be recognized, to be seen as human, to have our concerns validated in some way, because we're having another hashtag every 3 months, and at some point, a community of people are going to be fed up. And I think this is just a manifestation of really all of our trauma and rage and really just fed upness, for lack of a better word, of what's been going on.
And it's starting to get dark out here. How long will you stay out here?
As long as necessary. I do understand that there's a curfew in place, but I do hope that in the meantime, people will be able to recognize what we've come out here to do.
And I see you've been meeting a lot of people as well. What are the messages that you've heard from other people that you didn't know before today that have come out here?
I've heard... Absolutely, absolutely. It's not our responsibility. It's not.
You should just stop. She can do the research on her own, and she can talk to one of these other white people out here.
I would like to hear what she has to say, because she has been saying some amazing things to this crowd.
She has. And she's been saying it to black people. So why don't you go tell your white friends the same thing, the message that she told? Go tell your white friends.
I'm here just like you are, sir.
So where's your sign? Where's everything else?
Where's my sign? I'm reporting on this.
Why are you getting upset? Why are you getting upset? I should be
Sir,
the one
I'm not getting upset.
I have to go. No, wait, because I have to go to work.
She's been great, and she has been giving a positive message to these people.
And I have to look at people who look just like you and try to act like...
Wow. Okay, that's a moment there with our Charlotte McBride. You can see there a disrespectful moment. You talk about people who are out there preaching inclusion and justice for everyone, talking about everyone being human, but yet you have an exchange like that. Wow, I'm processing that just like you are. It's moments like this that are just, you're hopeful, you want this to end, but it goes both ways. It's on both sides. Charlotte's my friend. I'm black. Wow. Okay. Let's get back to Ardelia Gonzalez one more time, if you will. Dee, what are you seeing out there? It seems like it was calm a minute ago, and I take it it's still the same way.
Yeah, it really thinned out. But I wanted to walk over to the Makeshift Memorial. Our camera is going to stay static. Maybe we can do this together. Bear with us, folks. But I do want to bring you a little closer to this Makeshift Memorial. You can see it has grown tremendously. When we first got here, it was just one poster, that kind of fluorescent poster in the middle with his picture, and some flowers. You can see all the additional flowers, all the posters that are here. Folks still taking pictures, kind of taking this moment to remember the life that was lost. Let me see if I can talk to some folks who are here about why they came out. Excuse me, ma'am. Hi, I'm Delia from Channel 9. Can I chat with you for a second about why you're here? You're laying down a flag. Tell me about that flag that you're laying down.
This is the Mexican flag, and I just wanted to show support and solidarity for the Black community. And I know that we got a lot of issues going on, and I just think it's important that we have a unified front against everything. And so it's anybody that's an ally, anybody that just believes that, you know, there's a lot of racial disparities and racial injustices going on.
Tell me, were you here for the whole rally and vigil, and what did you make of this moment and this demonstration in comparison to kind of the other images that we've been seeing around town and next to the White House as well?
Well, this one was very peaceful, and I appreciate that because I feel like a lot of the protests that are going on right now in America are kind of getting a bad rap as far as, you know, people turning it into, you know, something that it shouldn't be, looting and, you know, breaking things up. And that's really not about that. They're taking away the significance of what the moment represents, which is an opportunity to have your voice heard. And if enough people are saying that something is a problem, then it should be addressed. The people shouldn't continue to be ignored. So.
What's next for you personally after experiencing something like this and coming out and laying your flag?
I'm basically just going to try to, you know, speak more. We have a lot in the Black and brown community, specifically Mexican. We've been having a lot of issues, like on the West Coast with corn, the guy that sells corn and so on and so forth. There's been a lot of Black and on brown crime. And I know that, like, as a community, we're just trying to kind of dispel that notion. We're, you know, we face a lot of the same struggles. We have a lot of the same problems going on. And I just think that going forward, we need to have a unified front against oppression.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Stephanie Paz, and I am from Rockville, Maryland.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. You know, that folks came out here and spent some significant time here, hoping that this will help unify our countries. Talked to a young lady earlier today in that healing circle who said our country needs healing. I asked her, she's a psychologist. I asked her about, you know, what's your advice for folks who are angry, frustrated, bitter, all of these emotions wrapped up in one. She said, create something good out of all of that anger, out of all of that energy. We have park police here who have been staged here for the whole event. Now, there were barricades here at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial since early today, this afternoon when we got here. They were open when we saw some folks taking pictures and some joggers. As soon as the rally started and the marchers approached the Lincoln Memorial, Park Police closed the barricade, and they've been kind of
yeah, indeed. There was some,
standing guard there
was some
for the whole event.
I noticed there was some graffiti around the Lincoln Memorial as well, right? So I feel like they've been watching this area a little more closely, not knowing what some of these vandals might do this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's graffiti just at the steps, at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial here before you approach the steps, and so certainly they want to protect anyone from going inside and causing more destruction there as well. We're urging everyone to remain peaceful, and if they heard any kind of commotion, they stopped the crowd immediately and kind of calmed everyone down. But you know, all in all, a really serene environment here. And I think the folks who came here really needed it. A lot of folks who said, you know, I was filled with so much anxiety, I needed to come here. And hopefully they're starting anew. You know, we saw a lot of kids here. A lot of kids. There was an interracial couple that I saw who live on Capitol Hill, brought their children. And the white father said, I'm raising a young Black man. And yes, he's only 5 years old and he doesn't quite understand. But his mother, I spoke to her, she grew up as an activist with her mother involved in the NAACP. She says, my children need to be here. They need to know. And so that's the kind of rally this was. We saw a lot of children here, a lot of families, and a lot of folks just hoping that this is now the beginning of a more peaceful chapter in the protests for George Floyd.
Yeah, and we got to talk about the this pandemic as well. You bring up another good point, Dee, because at some of the other protests we were monitoring earlier, people said they had to grapple with whether or not they were going to head out in protest because the crowds were so large and they were worried about their health. But this seemed like a good opportunity for people to be in a place that was, you know, airy, and people did seem to keep their distance to a certain degree.
As much as we could, you know, and honestly, I have to say I've been keeping my distance for the last several months. And so this is the largest crowd that I've been around, but everyone that I've seen have been taking precautions, wearing their masks, giving each other as much space as possible.
Anybody that's an ally, anybody that just believes.
You want to come over? I'll give you some time.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. What's your name and where are you from?
I'm coming from Maryland. I'm just some guy, really.
And what did you want to say?
I just wanted to say I've been out here all day, and the protest, man, it's been a little crazy out here, but honestly, everybody's been all right. Everything's been pretty cool, and it's nice to see that everybody got to get their voice heard, and nobody got hurt, and that's all that's important. So nobody got hurt, and everybody got their voice out there, and that's all I want to say.
And I want to ask you where your mask is. Where's your mask? Look, see, there you go. Yeah. But I'm glad you're being safe. Go get a mask. I'm glad you're being safe. Okay. Are you going to stay here for the rest of the night? Or are you going to wrap it up after this?
I think that's all I want to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day.
You too.
Or good night, I guess, wherever you are.
I always got to be a mother, right? He didn't have a mask on. We were just talking about masks.
I was about to
Come on,
say,
Zoe.
Mama D, keeping them in line out there. All right, thank you, D. We
Keeping
appreciate
everyone
you.
in check.
You stay safe. We're going to check back in on some of our other locations throughout the city right now. And right now, we want to get over to, do we have Tom? Tom Dempsey? There we go. Where are you exactly, Tom?
We are at the intersection of Vermont and H right now. On my left is the White House, where the crowd now seems to be getting even bigger right now. People are filling in over here, because on my right is the intersection of 15 and H. And maybe about an hour and a half ago, roughly, there was a big march that was going down here. We saw protesters standing on what appeared to be a police car, and then this big group of protesters formed all the way down there. Like I said, the protesters that were down there are now filing down back towards the White House. But amongst the crew that we have down here for WUSA, Darren Haynes, our sports director. Come on over here, Darren. Tell me, so you were close to all of this. Tell me what you saw, down at the intersection of 15th and H.
Well, what attracted a lot of people to this area were those, what they call those like lightning bombs were making those big explosions. And what happened was the police officers, DC police officers, set up basically a front to basically stop us from walking down the street. And what we've been trying to get the police officers and Secret Service to do all day, even at the White House, was to take a knee to support what this protest is all about. And then next thing you know, about one cop takes a knee, then two cops take a knee, and then I believe it was a total of 5 police officers that took a knee. And I was blown away. At first I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to get in trouble because of their job? But I then went over to the police officer, and I was just like, why did you do that? Because of the position that you're in. And I'm saying, quote, because I respect what y'all are doing. And to hear that from a police officer in this situation, that means a lot. This is what the people really want to hear, because they want answers. And to hear someone say, hey, I support you, that goes a long way.
And it was actually, it's funny because right down where this big gathering was, we saw this discussion happening between police and a group of protesters talking about, the need. They were talking about, we need more black police officers. The police officers were saying this to the group of protesters. It was a peaceful discussion, and you were hearing about, the need for security cameras or body cameras on the police officers. So it's interesting to see those discussions, and the one you heard as well. I mean, it's like as you were saying, you came out here Friday and Saturday. Describe to me how different today is compared to the other 2 days.
So today was a time where I actually wanted to be in the front lines to really feel and breathe and be a part of what's going on. And anybody who has watched me on WSA 9 knows that because of the police brutality I was a victim of in 2014 is a reason why I support Black Lives Matter. It's why I'm here. It's why I have a sign, because I was a victim. I lived it myself. And so to be in the front lines and to hear people chanting their frustration, I'm like, wow, that's why I'm frustrated. It humanized me. I mean, I'm a human, but it put me on the same level as everybody else. And we were able to express our feelings in a very peaceful way. The worst thing that happened today were some water bottles that were thrown. That was the worst thing that I saw today. I call that peaceful.
No, absolutely. And, you know, the take-home message of all this, you know, these protests that are happening, you just said it right there, maybe. The big takeaway from these protests, what is the main message of all this?
The main message is people need to vote when it comes down to the elections. We can protest in the streets, and I love it because it creates awareness. Like, the White House is right there. If the president's in the White House, he knows that there are people there. And so they create the awareness. Now the only way we can really make those decisions change is if we vote and hopefully they elect who the majority of the people elect to be the president.
Hey, Tom.
Also, when it comes down to the census report, there are a lot of things that we can do that can help make a change in our community. This is one of them, but this is the first step to a bigger step, and that's getting to the polls.
Hey, Tom.
Lorenzo, I think he's...
Yeah, before we leave you, can you tell Darren it's his best friend Lorenzo has a question for him? I want to know how
best friend Lorenzo.
How that incident with police, what impact did that have on him? How did that change him?
The incident with police up here.
No,
I'm sorry,
earlier.
the incident with police that happened
Darren's own encounter with
earlier.
police. Yeah.
The incident from police from years ago.
Yeah.
And I believe the question, Lorenzo, was how did that change him? Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That simple encounter.
Yeah, Lorenzo, that's a great question. Every single time I get pulled over, I record audio now. I used to record video. That's every single time I get pulled over now. And I actually have another video where the cop told me when I didn't feel safe, he was like, "Don't make me have to yank you out of the car." That was Connecticut State Police. They did their own investigation on that one. I don't know the results of it. That's something I need to follow up on. But it still lives. It's fear. And I mentioned this earlier, like this entire week, usually I'm the person who tweets and do this and do that. But it was just so real this week where I was scared. I was scared because it keeps happening. It keeps happening. I mean, look at the sign.
We have the sign here.
Good. So this is the sign that you leave blank because you unfortunately, you feel like something's going to happen next year. It's going to be another person. It's going to be another individual, and the history has not proven this poster wrong. And that's the reality, and that's why I was so fearful this entire week, because, man, there's been, it changes your life when you feel like you're helpless and you can't do anything, and you have police officers yanking you on the car and then putting you on the ground, and you don't know what's next, and they lock you up, they beat you up, and then you have to go live your life like nothing happened. And at that time, I was just hired at ESPN at that time, and I was scared to tell people that I got my butt kicked by the police. I was afraid of that. Like, why should I be afraid to speak about that? And throughout the years, as when Colin Kaepernick started taking a knee to protest social injustice, it added more fuel to my fire to say, basically almost like the Me Too movement. Me Too, that happened to me. And so that's why that's how I changed from that moment, where I'm a media member, but yet I'm also a human being in the streets of DC fighting for what I feel is right.
And that's what we have right now. That's what's unfolding right now in DC.
You got me choking up, man.
But you know, we hear stories like this, and you are, a part of this you were witnessing all of this. It's stories like that that are motivating people to go out to the White House right now. It's stories like that that are motivating people to go out to the intersection of 15 and H. This is what is happening in D.C. right now, and this is the protest that is happening right now, and this is the type of thing, these stories that we just heard, the very personal stories that are very real for people that are motivating them to come out to this protest.
All right, Tom, thank you so much, and thank Darren as well for letting us in and sharing that moment with us. Big hug to both of you, and stay safe.
Thank you for sharing that.
All right, we'll check in with you in just a moment, but right now let's get over to our Charlotte McBride again, who's outside of Lafayette Square. And first of all, Charlotte, are you okay? I know you had a moment with one of the protesters there when we saw you last, but you're doing okay now. You feel okay?
Yeah, I am doing okay. And, you know, I can sense that there is a lot of anger here, and there are a lot of people who are very, very passionate about why they're out here, and I completely understand that. Unfortunately, yes, I did have a run-in with someone who wasn't as peaceful as we would like this to be. I've met a lovely woman, Julie, and she just got here about 20 minutes ago. And Julie, tell me why you came here and why you worked all day and now you're here and you want to be here.
Well, I came here because it's just wrong. I mean, we're tired of being senselessly killed in the streets by the people who are supposed to be protecting us. They are not protecting us. They're trying to make us afraid. But there's nothing to be afraid about when we didn't choose being black. And as you can see by my sign, it says, you can choose not to kill us, but we didn't choose being black. And so when these senseless killings happen day after day and week after week, at some point we say to ourselves, enough is enough. And if you are silent, you are non-ally. If you are silent, you are non-ally. If you have black friends, that doesn't matter. Speak up and do the work in your community. March with us. Donate. Donate to defund the police. This is not right.
And you've been marching here today, and I see you're surrounded by your friends that you came down here with as well. When you hear all of these people chanting, what do you feel inside?
I feel power. I feel empowered. I feel like this is what we're supposed to be doing. I don't think we're supposed to be sitting down and being silent, because at the end of the day, that's not how the revolution works. The revolution doesn't work just by us sitting and being silent. We're going to be loud, and we're going to shake, and we're going to bring attention. There's one simple way to end this. Charge the police. Charge all of the police, not just for George Floyd, not just for Ahmaud Arbery, not just for Breonna Taylor. Charge all of the wrongful police.
Julie, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. You can hear behind me, they've just started chanting behind me, and everyone wants change, as you heard Julie say, and everyone wants a positive change in this community and across America. And it really is powerful being down here. We're right near the fence. As you can see, they have deployed the National Guard to come here with the DC police, the National Guard right now starting to emerge onto the lawn. We can see them in the far distance, but they are here for the long haul. We have been told that they are going to start coming closer to the fence as these crowds start to encroach a little bit. But right now, again, Lorenzo, it's just pretty powerful. And I see families here too, even though it's starting to be dark outside. I see people still with their children. And it's amazing to see those families that are here peacefully protesting for what they know is right and what they believe is right. And I think when I see kids as young as 7 years old out here and talk to them about why they're here, they light up because they realize they are part of change. And I think that's really, really important.
Hey, and Charlotte, is there a way your photographer can sort of show us the lay of the land here, where these protesters, who they're chanting at? Is it some of the folks with the National Guard? Are they directing this toward the White House? I just want your photographer to show us a bit more.
If we could show them the police and who they're chanting at.
Okay, so you're still right on that perimeter of Lafayette Square, yeah.
Yeah, we're right there on Lafayette Square. That's where we are, right here, and we're along the perimeter. And you can see the DC police, and they've also turned on the lights, as you can see. But way in the back, they have also deployed the National Guard. They are getting ready. As you know, Lorenzo, I am only 5'2", but my security detail is 6'7", and he can see over this crowd, and he tells me he can see the National Guard being deployed right now. As you can tell, it really starting to ramp up. We have a lot of people kind of filing in here. Many new people. As I talked to Julie, she had just arrived here about 30 minutes ago. She wasn't here earlier in the day. She was working today, and so she just got here, and I think we are seeing a lot of new faces in the crowd. And honestly, it's become a quite peaceful protest, and with the National Guard here, of course, we're hoping it remains that way as the night goes on. We are seeing a bigger presence in DC police as well. There was just a few here about an hour ago, and now I would say that the amount of DC police right here on the lawn has tripled, if not quadrupled in size.
Yeah, and I want to point out too, for a lot of the people who are either just starting to watch what's unfolding in Washington, who may not have been plugged in all day. These protests were a little farther away earlier in the morning. Secret Service and Park Police, they had that barrier set up closer to 8th Street, right along the street there. So these protesters weren't even allowed to get this close, but throughout the day they've been breaking those barriers and getting closer and closer while still remaining peaceful, and I think that's why you see some of those National Guard members, Park Police, and Secret Service kind of standing guard there with the riot gear, just because they're not sure how much closer they're going to get, and as sun sets, this may get a bit more chaotic if history's any indication. Yeah, Charlotte.
Lorenzo, I want to touch on that. You mentioned about more police coming, and yes, you're right. They have broken down barriers. They've broken through the police tape. We've seen many barriers just lying on the ground, and of course the police are not coming close enough to pick those up. So right now there is just this one barrier, and I'm kind of right up against it. We've made it all the way up to the barrier here, but the police have also backed up. Earlier, they were within feet of these protesters, and now they have backed up as well as they wait for the National Guard to again descend upon this lawn. And the crowd has certainly grown. I'm standing up here against the fence. I can see maybe, I would say, nearly 50 to 60 feet back there. It's packed all the way in. So, again, just chanting and just peaceful right now. And it's powerful. It's powerful here. And I think that we've seen a lot of people who have come out here, obviously wanting change, but also getting along. And I think they'll be here for the remainder of the night, at least the people we talk to. But they also say they will honor that 11 o'clock curfew that is in place. So we will see what happens come 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and Liz, we can't stress that enough, that again, DC does have a curfew that goes into effect 2.5 hours from now at 11 o'clock, and it stays in place until 6 a.m. tomorrow, 6 a.m. Monday. So what we're witnessing here, Charla, I think we should also emphasize is that these protests have been largely peaceful for the most part today, aside from maybe water bottles thrown toward police officers and, a couple of any rowdy protesters. But for the most part, it's been this. They've been chanting, they've been keeping their distance, and just making sure they keep the focus on George Floyd. And as you can see behind you, another victim right there, Breonna Taylor.
That's right. They really have. We've only seen, those water bottles tossed, as you mentioned, and we have witnessed a few people being tear gassed, but we were also told that was when someone broke down a barrier. And since then, it's really been peaceful protest, and we haven't even seen any fights. We haven't really seen too many people yelling at each other or at the DC police. Okay, we see some activity here. The DC police look like they are... Okay, we have a barrier that is down in the center, and it looks like the DC police now are coming our way. They have broken the center barrier. As the crowd gets closer and closer to us, the police now are coming our way. They are trying to get that barrier back up. Right now, we have many protesters trying to push through that barrier. Now they are throwing the water bottles, as we mentioned before, Lorenzo. So we have the police. They have put that they have put that barrier back up, and now, as you can hear them yelling, hands up, don't shoot.
And are you okay, Charlotte? I just want to check on you as well. Do you feel okay? Are you fine?
I feel okay. I am right here up against the barrier, but I do feel okay. I'm surrounded by people that seem to be pretty peaceful, despite what you're probably hearing. But the police have definitely moved up. I would say right now they are probably 20 feet from us. I don't know if you can see where I am. So I made it right up here against the barrier. As you can see, the police are right here. But,
yeah, so this is
no
what was
tear gas,
another
no signs of
difference.
mace.
Watch out for some of those objects being thrown as well, which is what we're seeing here. They are trying to keep their distance this time around. They were so close to those protesters last night, and that's when they engaged in a lot more confrontation. They were within within range of some of these protesters who were throwing objects. So you notice they walked up to that barrier, put it back up, and tried to take a step back. So they are attempting to keep their distance and only going forward when absolutely necessary. But even then, when they did take those steps forward,
and Lorenzo,
you saw some of the people throwing those objects at these park police officers.
Lorenzo, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I do want to say that people just now were throwing water bottles, and actually the majority of the crowd turned around to the people throwing water bottles and telling them to stop, which is what's happening right now behind me.
Get out of here, man.
People want peace.
Get out of here, man.
The man next to me, I know, has been telling people to stop throwing
Yeah, I can
because
hear
they
him saying,
don't
"Get
want
out of
that.
here,
They
man."
don't want violence. Right, yes. So a lot of people here really want this to be peaceful, and they are actually yelling and getting upset at people that are making it not so peaceful. And again, I do feel good. Our security detail, Nate, has been looking to make sure that we are safe. And again, I believe that I am surrounded by people that do want this to be peaceful here, but it definitely has escalated. And I would say about 20 more DC police have just arrived in the last few seconds. They are forming a very solid line here around the perimeter. Again, the National Guard following up behind them. So I think this is definitely getting very heated tonight as the sun goes down. But
Yes.
again, hopefully it can remain peaceful here.
Yeah, so we do know that U.S. Park Police is there on scene. Mayor Bowser did activate the D.C. National Guard a little earlier, just a short time ago. D.C. does have a curfew again in about 2 hours and 20 minutes. These folks have said they will abide by that curfew and leave as you get closer to 11 o'clock. But we do know the big point here is they have been trying to remain peaceful. They didn't want this to get out of hand. So we're going to keep watching what's going on here with you, Charla. Let us know if anything changes, and you stay safe. We'll check in a minute.
Yes.
All right, but right now let's get back to Ardelia Gonzalez over at the Lincoln Memorial. It's tough to say that this is a protest, or there was a protest there today. It's been more of a memorial, right, Dee?
Absolutely. The flowers and candles and candlelight vigils that we're so used to seeing, unfortunately, in our neighborhoods that have been ravaged by violence, we see here. For a man who's not from D.C., but could be your son, could be your brother, could be your neighbor, could be your father. And so, y'all not tired yet. That was the graffiti zone that you were talking about here at the foot of the memorial. And so certainly that is why we saw that barricade in place when the marchers came down around 6 o'clock, marching down from the Washington Monument here to the Lincoln Memorial. Park Police, there were about 8 of them staged on the steps. They have obviously since left. About 10 minutes ago, they left and things quieted down here. Few folks still over at the vigil, and you can see the candle lights flickering as the sun sets here over the Lincoln Memorial. And what has been a very peaceful, calm day starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon when there was a healing circle here. And in fact, that healing circle started organically with folks who just said they needed to process everything that they had seen. And now they're committing to coming back and having another healing circle every Sunday at 3 o'clock here at the lawn outside of the Lincoln Memorial. And so it has been a day of mixed emotions, various emotions here at the Lincoln Memorial. Folks who understand what's happening just blocks away at the White House, folks who came here for some solace, and then folks here who are just trying to enjoy a good Sunday out with their family. Folks, tourists who were here to look at the memorial, students who were celebrating a milestone and taking pictures in their caps and gowns and in their prom dresses. So it has been an interesting evening as it has played out here at the Lincoln Memorial. A lot of folks saying we're hoping and praying that this is a turning point where we now take some of, like I told you before, take some of that anger and that frustration and channel it into something positive. Can I talk to you, sir? Yeah, come on, I'm from Channel 9. Let's chat for a quick second. You brought your children? I saw them running up the stairs. Tell me about how you're feeling with everything that's been happening around the country and here in D.C.
I feel kind of frustrated, hurt. Frustrated, hurt. Want problems to get solved. Touching. That's about it.
What do you tell your young men, these young men that you're raising, about their future and about hope in the midst of all of this?
So, like, all we really could do is just, inform them what's going on and just pray for the best, That's it.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate
No
it. What's
problem.
your name? And
James.
Where are you from?
James. I'm from Washington, D.C.
All right. You be safe, James. Thank you very much. Do you know about the curfew, James?
Yes, I do.
What do you think about that? I can't let him go just yet. What do you think about the curfew? Because folks were a little surprised by it. They just pulled out their phones and saw the alert come over across. What do you think about the curfew? The mayor initially said she wasn't going to have a curfew.
Right.
Changed her mind, obviously.
I feel like that we really don't need a curfew because, us as the people, we should be able to express our concern and our feelings. So I don't agree with the curfew.
What do you want and what do you hope the night will bring? Last night brought a lot of unexpected violence, or maybe expected violence, depending on your perspective, but we all woke up to those images of spots in D.C. burning. What do you want to see when you wake up tomorrow morning?
I just want to see peace and justice. Justice, pretty much. That's it.
All right. James from D.C., thank you so much. I appreciate it. Take care of your two young kings that you're raising. All right, guys, have some fun up there.
I remember this place.
You do?
I've been here when he died.
And that is, that's
right.
that's just, the various layers of the day, right? Children full of hope, full of life, interjecting themselves in what is a very serious and sometimes heavy time for a lot of us.
All right,
but those children running around certainly bring us hope for the future.
All right. You stand by for me, Dee. We'll check in again in just a minute. Right now, let's get back to Charlotte, who's at the White House complex. You moved away from that barrier, a little farther away from Secret Service and U.S. Park Police. Where are you right now?
So I just moved. I'm actually standing right here in the middle of H Street, just ahead of that barrier. And excuse me, Lorenzo, they did just deploy tear gas. So definitely breathing that in right now. But we were able to get out of there with about 10 seconds to spare before they did release tear gas on the entire crowd here. So everyone ran to where I am right now, and now, as you can see, they're starting to move back towards that barrier. But the DC police, obviously not messing around. They've already broken one barrier. They were trying to break another. They were throwing water bottles at the police, and at that moment, that is when the police did release tear gas into the crowd. And I will say that's a first for me. I've never experienced that, but thankfully our security detail did take the brunt of that for us. So we feel okay, and we have definitely backed up. We will not go near that barrier anymore, but they have now even doubled up on police, and the National Guard is now on the lawn as this crowd continues to swell. We were here earlier when it was pretty a large-sized crowd, but I will say right now it is at least 10 times that size. So we have a very large crowd here outside the White House here right on Lafayette Square, and I don't think they're going anytime soon. Thankfully, again, we have that 11 o'clock curfew in place, and maybe that will send some people home, but right now this crowd is just swelling, and thankfully the tear gas in the air is starting to die down as well.
Yeah, and some perspective too for some of you who may have been tuned out for most of the weekend. These protests last night, we thought they might end at around 11 o'clock or midnight, but no, they kept going until close to 1 a.m. and it took a fire next to the Hay Adams Hotel, a structure there, and a couple of other flashbangs to get this crowd to disperse and finally go home. And it's interesting that Mayor Bowser still didn't put into place a curfew for tonight earlier in the day, considering what we saw last night. But again, we do have that curfew taking place tonight, and maybe this will wrap up within the next 2 hours or so and remain largely peaceful.
Yes, we hope that it remains largely peaceful here at Lorenzo. I mean, like I said, it really was, and you and I were just talking a few moments ago that it was peaceful and it felt peaceful. And almost instantaneously, there were a few people that decided to throw those water bottles and then break through that barrier. And of course, at that moment, that is when the DC police then released tear gas to this entire crowd here.
Now, Charlotte, you mentioned that this crowd has been growing over the hour.
Yes.
Is there a way you can tell me, is the makeup still the same? I know we were talking to a lot of people a little earlier today. Some families were out with their kids. And you just had some people who wanted to be part of this, but as nightfall sets, who are the people in this crowd? Is it kind of the same makeup? Have you seen a lot of families, or are they just younger folks?
I was seeing a lot of families, I would say maybe 30 minutes ago, but I would say just in the last 30 minutes, the last half hour, I'm seeing a lot of younger people. When I say younger, in their 20s and 30s, but not young as in children. The families have gone home, especially after that last tear gas. I think that if people have small children, they are certainly leaving. But now, unfortunately, it's growing less peaceful as people begin to throw things, and I'm sensing more of an anger, and we are hearing a lot more people chanting now, and it is now going all the way down. I'm at the intersection of H Street and 16th. Before, there were no people here. Behind me, I am looking all the way down 16th. There's people here on 16th. You can see this crowd has backed up all the way, and again, it goes all the way up to the barrier. So we have a lot of people here right now, and again, we hope it's not like what happened last night, where when night falls, the violence does pick up. We hope that is not the case, but right now, it's kind of a waiting game. And again, you mentioned that curfew, and we certainly hope that 11 p.m. curfew does a lot to help this city tonight.
Yeah, and I appreciate the vantage point your photographer just gave us there, because it allowed us to see just how much this crowd has grown, because as they've moved closer and closer. You okay there, Charlotte?
Yes, I'm
okay.
Good. We just had some people kind of rushing this way,
okay.
But we are good. We are across the street. So
right,
as you can see, our photographer Kurt is showing you guys the crowd right now. There are still some people right up against the barriers. While most people have run, now it looks like they are returning to try to get right up there to the barriers. But the police presence is also growing as well, as I mentioned, Lorenzo. A lot of police now arriving at the White House, and a lot more here on the lawn. So they have kind of called in for reinforcements as well with the National Guard. So we have all of that as well.
Yeah, I was saying before that not too long ago, this street was somewhat empty, and a lot of the protesters were in Lafayette Square to a certain degree, getting a little closer. So to just see it swelling to this size this late in the day is also pretty concerning. As I know that police and some of the city leaders in D.C. want to get some of these folks home a little sooner than later, if you will. What are these people who are standing behind you, Charlotte? What are they? Are these folks like the guys right here behind you with the bike? Are they part of this? Or are they just kind of observing? I just want to get a lay of the land and figure out who's doing what.
We're with WUSA 9. Did you guys just get here?
couple minutes ago,
Yeah. What brought you out here? Why were you hoping to come right here tonight?
I'm just trying to be here as an ally. I don't think I'm the right person to interview. But I will say that these cops are on the line. They're banging their shields. They're looking to fight, okay? And if you're watching this on TV, and you can stand with this, I mean, this is unbelievable. They're matching violence and antagonism with more violence and antagonism. This is an entirely peaceful protest, but don't interview me. Find an organizer, find someone else. I just want to be here and support my Black community members.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's a point too. What that guy said there, Charlotte, is you've had some people who, aside from the protest, which there are two prongs to this. Some people are talking about George Floyd and the systemic racism and police brutality. Watch your back, Charlotte.
Oh. Okay, yes,
but you
we
also
have a lot of
folks
water
who,
bottles, as you can see. No, I was just going to say, Lorenzo, again, it's one of those, a heated moment. You get one person that throws a water bottle and several people follow. And then, I think there is that fear then from the crowd that tear gas will then be released. And it seems like this is an ongoing thing, maybe once every 5 minutes or so.
There's still
the crowd,
a little bit of gray area
it just takes one person. It just takes one person in the crowd. And then they're not really sure how police are going to respond because, as you know, just a few minutes ago, they did release tear gas. So I think there's a little bit of fear here now and also hope for most of the people I've talked to that it remains peaceful. Really, a lot of the people I've spoken with, they just want to be here and have a peaceful protest. That's really what they're hoping for.
And sorry to play ping pong with this thought here. Continuing what I was saying a little earlier is, it's two-pronged.
Right.
You have George Floyd and systemic racism, police brutality. That's the umbrella of this protest. But a lot of people have also been talking about, you've seen those signs saying silence is betrayal. They want more Americans to speak out about what
Most
we're seeing.
people
You can't
I've
help
seen
but
so
look
far.
at the image of Floyd, this 46-year-old man under the knee of a police officer for nearly 9 minutes and not say anything, not do anything. Just not speak out about how wrong that is. I mean, in that situation, it's pretty black and white, figuratively speaking. So I know that a lot of these protesters want to hear from more people, like the guy you just spoke with a minute ago. He said he just wanted to show his support, didn't have a lot to say. But even his presence there and some of these people who are remaining silent, they're saying so much with just their presence alone.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. That I think a lot of people, they just want to show their support, and I think they're coming out here to make a statement. And just by being here, they're making a statement. And many of the people, like we said, are peaceful, and they just want to show their support because they believe, and we all know what we saw in that video. It's horrific to watch. It's awful to watch, and we know that it was wrong, and it was just incredible.
So there's a sign here. I'm going to read it for you.
I think every single person out
COVID
here
pandemic,
wants us to
no
know that
work,
this
no
cannot
income, no
happen.
insurance.
We can't live in a country where that becomes an everyday thing.
So that's
Thanks for what you're doing.
Another
keeping us informed
element
down
of
there,
these
giving us the big
protests
picture. You stay safe.
that are
I'm going to
happening.
have you stand by.
It's
We're gonna
coming
touch base with
after
you in just a
months of
couple minutes.
restrictions to
Right
curb
now, we're going to
the
go back to our Nathan Baca, who's
coronavirus
also
pandemic.
Just outside of Lafayette Square.
And
you can see the
after
White
a
House
deep
in the distance
economic
of his shop
slowdown
there. And,
that
Nathan,
this
what are you
pandemic has
seeing? What's
caused,
been your perspective?
with 40 million people now out of work in the United States.
Every few minutes or so, you start seeing a wave of people just retreat really quickly, running
And,
away. That's
we're
because
also in
after some water bottles getting thrown
New
over
York
the
City.
fence line here in Lafayette Park, then you get inevitably
That has
some
been,
sort of tear gas or at least
particularly
fear
hit
of tear
by
gas.
the
And so then you
coronavirus
start seeing people
crisis.
just rushing back, almost like waves, just back and forth, back and forth. They did deploy some tear gas a little earlier. Now, to give you some perspective about just this entire afternoon, we were right here along Lafayette Park, and then there was a call to walk toward the Trump International Hotel. So people started walking along 8th Street, and then it was at 15th and 14th Street. We had about 1 or 2 agitators who decided to get on top of police cars, start kicking in the windshields of the police cars, and then that set a police action to just sweep and take over 8th Street and split up the crowd. Some were on the 15th Street side of 8th Street, others were on the 14th Street side of 8th Street. You started to get police just moving back, moving people back with the
just one news
flashbang
coming
grenades,
from DC right now.
And that is just a
The mayor
loud
of
percussive
DC has
sound that
just
can really
issued
startle
a
somebody,
citywide curfew
and then you started to get
from 11
sometimes
p.m.
people
to
either,
6 a.m.
tripping,
in the
getting
wake.
trampled, or in some cases they were getting pepper sprayed as well. So right now, things seem to be calm enough that you still get some people just, with their signs, with their chanting back and forth. This is another one of those waves. So you see some of the pepper spray kind of, those clouds, and the water bottles going over the side. So it's this call and response. The water bottles go over, the pepper spray gets launched, and you get this wave of people that will retreat for a bit and then try to press back. Lorenzo?
Yeah, Nathan, for the most part, you talked about those agitators when you were over at 14th and 8th Street a few blocks away earlier. How did the crowd respond? Because what I've noticed is you may have an agitator or two in the crowd, but the rest of the group doesn't seem to be soaking it up as much as what we saw yesterday.
If I heard you correct, you're asking how did the crowd respond to the agitators? And to answer that question, in many cases, people were saying, stop, don't do this. Again, the vast majority of the people out here are peaceful. They are just with their signs, chanting slogans such as, no justice, no peace, calling out the name of George Floyd. For every 100 people that we saw peacefully protesting, we saw one or two who were either spray painting the walls of businesses or they were kicking in police car windshields in 2 instances that we saw. And once we saw that happened along 15th and 8th Street, that's when things started to change, when you had police that decide to take over 8th Street and split the crowd in two. Some people were forced to stay on 15th and H. Half of them were forced to be pushed back to 14th and H. And the police were able to do that with the flashbangs, with the pepper spray, that they basically just marched people across the way. So again, to give you perspective, what I also see right here, along that area right there, that building, people are climbing that building along Lafayette Park, sometimes on the trees, and that is something that we've been seeing occasional police response. Again, it's almost like this push and pull, where you have the protesters, in some cases, throwing water bottles across, and then they are met by pepper spray. And then what happens then is that you get that wave of people retreating back. But other people are saying, stand your ground. So it's just these waves back and forth, right here along Lafayette Park. Lorenzo?
And Nathan, take me outside of Lafayette Square, if you will. You were walking a few blocks away from the White House, this sort of business district. Did you notice any looting at all? Any businesses that had their storefronts damaged? That's kind of what we saw last night, so I want to understand what the situation is now.
Much of the way of fresh glass on the ground. The only thing that I saw recently broken was the glass partition of a Metro bus stand. But what we did witness was some spray painting along some parking garages, some businesses, mostly some slogans against the police. But as far as the other agitation going on along that area, is mostly directed at the police. We have not been seeing any looting whatsoever this afternoon.
All right, that's good to know. And at the moment, yeah, this seems to be very peaceful. You've had these sort of, it's going in ebbs and flows here. You have a moment where it's quiet and then it just erupts. So you just never know when that's going to change. So we're going to keep watching this. And I also do want to point out once again that DC curfew goes into effect in 2 hours from now at 11 p.m. Mayor Bowser officially went through with that order, deciding to take that step late tonight. And that will go until 6 a.m. Monday. And we heard from our Charlotte McBride not too long ago, and talking with some of these protesters who told her that they do plan to obey the mayor's order and leave this space once that curfew goes into effect at 11 o'clock. And I just saw Charlotte. There you are. You're back here with us. And have you noticed a change in the mood there since we last spoke with you a few minutes ago?
No, not really. And I will say the crowd continues to swell, Lorenzo. There are more and more people that just keep piling in. I mean, a few minutes ago, you heard me talking to the young man who rode his bike here. He had just gotten here 5 minutes before, and we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing actually a lot of bikes. Excuse me. We're near a little bit where the tear gas was deployed, so it still kind of gets in the back of your throat. But we are seeing a lot more people come in, and a lot more people coming down 16th Street. Again, earlier today, that was completely empty. I would say 2 hours ago, no one was here. No one was even in this street. So we are seeing a lot more people arrive, which, as you said, is interesting considering there is that 11 o'clock curfew. But people seem to be coming out in droves here now, and the crowd is really starting to swell and really starting to spike here. So, again, there's only been that one time of the tear gas incident here, and that was 15 minutes ago or so, but nothing like that since. And everyone's kind of holding their ground, holding their places. I haven't seen any violent things since then. I haven't seen any water bottles or anything like that being thrown over the barricades, so that's also been a positive. But again, as more people come, they're also introducing more police. And I think that will be the case throughout the night. We are seeing a lot more police.
Yeah, we can't ignore the elephant in the room here. You're talking about people who are extremely close to the White House, where President Trump and the First Family, where they are tonight. The president didn't have any public events on his schedule today. I'm not even sure if he can hear these protesters. If he looks out the window, he can obviously see them.
You know what? I would say he can hear them.
Yeah, they're that
Lorenzo,
loud.
they are really loud. I would say that he has to be able to hear them. Honestly, it is pretty loud. We are hearing, if you can hear this right now, cheering right now. This is the first time that I have heard this in hours. This entire crowd is cheering and facing the police. Again, I can't see exactly up there what has happened. They did cheer one time earlier today, and that was when we saw a police officer kneel. And that really brought this crowd to their feet. So I'm not sure what just happened just now, but I can say that that's a very big positive thing to hear when we hear everyone cheering together.
A quick footnote to what you're talking about. Since you're watching us on your phone or your computer right now, if you go on over to WUSA 9, our Twitter page, I know our Darren Haynes, he captured a moment with DC police, some of them taking a knee a little earlier. I'm trying to see if I can pull that up right now, but yeah, you can see that image.
Yes, that is the moment.
Yeah, that was about an hour ago. He says one of the officers told him
was really powerful
that he took a knee because he, quote, respects what we are doing. And then you see the crowd sort of erupting. They obviously appreciate that moment, that human moment, because police really are in sort of a precarious situation here because they are protecting these protesters. They're doing their job. They're making sure they stay safe. I was out there Friday when I saw some of these protesters walking through D.C. and, you had D.C. police scrambling throughout the city to make sure they could walk up along Pennsylvania Avenue safely and not be obstructed by cars or any counter-protest or anything like that. And at the same time, you have a few people who went toe-to-toe with those same police officers and, got in their face, putting their middle fingers up in front of them. So it's almost a tough situation to do your job. There are fine police officers who are in it, who are doing the right thing, but they are bearing the brunt of this as well because people have also said it's a systematic problem. Yeah, Charlotte.
No, Lorenzo, you mentioned that, and the police officers trying to do their jobs as well here in protecting the White House tonight. And I witnessed firsthand when I was up against the barricade, people throwing water bottles. Many of them hit them in their heads. They were full water bottles, and the police officers did not flinch at that moment. They did not budge and kind of just took that as many water bottles came flying. So I think, like you said, I mean, they are there, and I guess they have a job to do tonight as well. And obviously, we're all hoping for a peaceful protest.
All right, Charlotte, you stand by. Stay safe. We'll check in again in just a couple of minutes. Let us know if the situation changes there. And now we're going to go over to our Tom Dempsey. He's just a few blocks away from Lafayette Square. To get your perspective, it seems quiet from what I'm seeing right now. I think I see a few shields in the background. I'm just making this all out based on what I'm seeing here. But give us your take, Tom.
Well, Lorenzo, we're right on Lafayette Square, and I wanted to give our viewers the perspective of just how much law enforcement is out here blocking this. Check this out, if we can move up. You can see all the police officers out here with their shields, the helmets on. It is like this all up Lafayette Square. We saw this too at the intersection of 15th and H. Keep in mind, these demonstrations are remaining very peaceful, and this is here right now. As we were saying, occasionally they will move up towards the protesters, and that'll lead to people sprinting away. But this is part of this situation here. The main group, as we're talking about sprinting away, if you want to check out over here, you can see it appeared that people were running away at some point, but you know, that's usually because of pepper spray or potentially tear gas. So we are kind of on the side of all of this, and we just heard, we're hearing some of these shields being used right now as we're, I believe it's water bottles potentially being thrown right now. Again, we're standing on the side of all this, Lorenzo. This is Lafayette Square you're seeing near the White House, and the row of law enforcement. It's a lot of them, as you can imagine, out here with a very big crowd. This crowd showing no signs of getting any smaller at this hour.
Yeah, so Tom,
as I was saying, occasionally,
if you can tell me, so what exactly is happening here? One, it's really quiet. It's dark. These people are just standing around with what's happening. I can hear kind of the main protest on the other side of the
One of the reasons I was going to say, yeah, we are on the side near Vermont and H Street, I believe. This is the side of this. If we want to step over here, you can actually see some of the law enforcement holding their shields up here. This is towards the center of the protest, Lorenzo. Again, this is...
I was trying to understand with these, if you can ask maybe this guy right here, I think he's to your right. I'm not sure where you are right now, Tom, but I just want to know what they're doing here. They're just staring at these officers. They're not saying anything. They're not holding any signs. Like this gentleman right here to your right. Okay, he does have a sign.
Yeah, he's being very quiet, and we can see him standing here just kind of looking at law enforcement. Sir, if you don't mind, can you walk me through just the feelings being here right now, seeing the law enforcement?
Yeah, I'm just tired of hearing about black people dying. I'm tired of being afraid just by being stopped by the cops. I see all of them, and I just need, no one in there understands. If they understood, they'd be out here with us.
I see the emotion behind. I mean, what does this mean to you, this protest and this issue that this protest is about? Describe it to me.
I'm from Southern Virginia, and growing up, there was a time in my life where I was ashamed because I was the only black person in advanced classes, and I was like, are other people not able? What is going on? As I grew up, I got to see more and more. These people just weren't given the same opportunities. We weren't all allowed the same opportunities. And now that I know, now that I am a 26-year-old, grown, still growing African-American man, I can see what I was blind to growing up. I can see the system. I can see the limitations. I can see when we are targeted as a people. I hate when people say all lives matter, because we get that. All lives do matter. But until black lives matter, until you get that through your head, we can't say all lives matter because we don't see it yet.
Your name, sir?
Justin Sumblin.
Justin, thank you so much for sharing that. I sincerely appreciate it. Justin, one of the many people here on the front lines. As we were seeing, we saw law enforcement move up just a little bit closer. But Lorenzo, you hear these personal stories of what is bringing people out to this protest, and it drives home, again, just how personal this is for the protesters out here, why they are waiting hours out on the front lines here, why they are looking at the law enforcement here. We are seeing the emotion behind these stories, and this is the protest that is playing out right now in front of the White House.
Yeah, it is really tugging at my heart over here, just listening to Justin talk there, letting us into that moment for him, and that's what I wanted you to get at there, Tom, because I kind of felt that some of the protesters on this end of it as we sit here and look at Justin, whew, it hurts knowing what.
And as I was saying, Lorenzo,
some of these
one of many stories, like we heard Darren's story a little while ago. Yeah,
and just watching him, there and just staring at these police officers and hearing the guilt and the shame he felt simply for being black when he was younger, that hurts. That has an impact on your life. You make certain decisions in life, I'm sure, based on that feeling. So as we sit here and watch him, it's quite a different perspective of this this protest than what we've been seeing on the other end, where people do feel like they have to be loud, they have to confront these people with these police officers directly. It seems like he's just taking in this moment to really come to grips with what he's realized at 26 years old, and what the future may hold. Really interesting moment, different perspective there. Again, I just wanted to sit on that just so we could take in, again, this different side of the protest. Still surrounding Lafayette Square, as our Tom Dempsey showed us a minute ago. You can see the U.S. Park Police there with their shields, kind of keeping guard of this area, because they want to make sure that the White House isn't breached at any point. So they do have this on lockdown, and this perimeter was actually pushed farther back earlier in the day, but some of these protesters have managed to get a little closer throughout the day. All right, Tom Dempsey, you stand by there. Thank you so much. Please thank Justin for me as well for sharing his story with us. And now we want to get back to Charlotte McBride, who's on the other end of Lafayette Square, and how have things changed, if at all, Charlotte?
You know what, there was a really amazing moment that happened a few minutes ago. I could hear singing, and so I got a little closer as hundreds here started to sing together the song Lean On Me. And it kind of brought silence to this entire crowd as everyone joined in and sang together. And we felt the peacefulness out of that for a moment, and how peaceful this protest can be, and how people really do want it to be peaceful here. So they're not singing anymore, but it really was beautiful. I just kind of stood and listened, and then afterwards people cheered, and they were all together in that moment. And I just heard Tom interviewing that man. I could hear in my earpiece, and you could hear the emotion there. Excuse me. Sorry. You could hear the emotion there, and I think a lot of people display that same emotion. And I've seen people crying out here. I've seen people holding hands. I saw a couple standing by a tree. They were holding hands. They probably didn't move for an hour. And you just wonder what they're thinking and how emotional a night like this is for them, that they have waited their whole lives to kind of be here in this moment. So I really have seen a lot of emotion from people here tonight. And again, I'm still trying to keep things peaceful, and we hope that it continues that way.
Yeah, and you told us about 15 minutes ago, Charlotte, that the crowd appeared to be growing. You saw more and more people filing into this area.
Yes.
Has it been holding steady at this? Because I keep thinking about this curfew coming up. And I'm assuming some people will start
Friday
to
night,
leave
though, a
as we
progression.
get closer to
Friday
11
night,
o'clock,
the
but,
police really held back
from what I'm
for
seeing
quite
here,
a while
that
until
doesn't seem
first
to be
something
the
was
case.
thrown and smashing the first window
No,
at the
it's not
Justice
the case.
Center.
And to be honest, I have seen a lot
But
of new faces.
even then,
I look around and I have seen many new faces, new people arriving on bikes, people coming from now all directions. At one point, they were trickling in from 15th Street and H, and now I see them coming from all directions. So the crowd has definitely swelled, and there are a lot more people that have gathered. And like you said, there is that curfew now at 11 p.m. And we were all out here earlier when that curfew was put in place by the mayor, and everyone's phones went off, as will happen with an emergency alert. And so we know that every single person here is aware of it, because as you know, all of our phones went off. But they just keep arriving and they keep coming. And yes, the crowd is growing. The crowd has been growing exponentially since we have gotten here.
And these people have really been out here. I can't say specifically the people right behind you, but the protesters collectively as a group, they have been out there for most of the day. We started out at Howard University, one of the protesters starting there at 2 p.m. rather. Those folks marched on over to the White House, got there at about 4 o'clock. But even before that point, you had people still stationed outside of the White House, different groups showing up throughout the day. And I should point out, you hear them chanting on and off Black Lives Matter. And that's more of a statement than anything. You do have the Black Lives Matter group, but just because you hear this large group chanting doesn't necessarily mean they're affiliated with Black Lives Matter. And I'm making that distinction because Black Lives Matter has made a point of getting their point across effectively and staying away from any chaotic scenes, any violence, and they don't want to be affiliated with that different image. So I just felt the need to point that out as well, that when you hear that, it's more of a statement. This entire group is not Black Lives Matter. You have a lot of folks from different backgrounds out here
And,
at this protest. Yeah.
And you mentioned, a lot of different people from different backgrounds out here, and we've seen many different backgrounds. And I just saw a man walk by me. I wish we were filming. He had a parrot on his shoulder, an actual parrot. And I don't know if it's a first for me, So he brought his parrot to the protest, and he seemed very peaceful with the parrot. So maybe that's a sign of peaceful things to come tonight.
So what's happening behind you here? People still just sort of just waiting around and...
So people are still coming in again, and actually directly behind me, if you were to walk about 30 feet, that is the barrier that was broken down earlier when they released tear gas, and people kind of are coming in and really pushing up against that barrier. We were near there, and that's why we have stepped back. But that kind of seems to be the epicenter here, right here on Lafayette Square, right at H Street and 16th. And more people just keep pushing in. It's getting very, very crowded right here in this area where people were spread out on the street. Now people are really just pushing forward. And that's something new that we're just seeing really in the last few minutes, is that the crowd is really starting to push forward here.
All right. I'm just taking in this moment with you. Right there, Charlotte. Any way we can talk to some of the folks behind you who are just kind of who are kind of waiting around?
They just kind of arrived. Sure. We'll see. Hi. Would you want to chat with us? I'm with WUSA 9. Thanks. I see that, and you guys kind of just got here. You kind of pushed in. What does this mean to you? Why did you come out here today? You specifically.
Well, today I wanted to come out because I felt like staying at home was just an example of silence, and I felt like nothing was going to get improved. And I felt like me, myself, individually, if I came out, I would express how I feel, because as a black man, I feel like I can't be heard. Everyone's here. We told them to take a knee, and none of them took a knee. And what that means to me is that they chose a side that permits and allows police brutality, and to me that's just unacceptable. And as a black man, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. We've seen a lot of people get emotional today. This is emotional, right? This is emotional for
you.
Yeah,
most definitely. It's just, my friend, he said, one day you wake up and you're in life. Right now I'm 22 years old, and to me, it's either you choose the police or you choose Black Lives Matter. And to me, if you choose the police, I want to know why you do that. I want to know why you don't want to take a stand, take a knee for something that's morally right to me. Like.
And I see your friends. Your friends came with you?
My friends came with me. They had the idea of coming, and so I was like, yeah, why not? Let me go with them too, and let my voice be heard. I want to make a change. I want to make a change. This is history right now. This is history in the making. Shit hasn't changed in the past 400 years. Shit hasn't changed since the civil rights movement. Today I want to make a change. I want to remember today as I made an effort to make a change today.
And I see you say your friends were the ones that wanted. Why did you want to come out here, and why did you push him to come out here?
I don't have much to say, but when it comes to race, I think everybody should be colorblind. We're all human beings, and you should treat everyone as such. If you don't, you have a problem with you.
When you see your friend getting emotional about this and you look around and you see the emotions pouring out from other people, how does that make you feel?
It's upsetting. It's truly upsetting because everybody should treat everyone like you would want to be treated. There's no reason to downplay anything, to hurt anybody. You should always want to take care of everyone around you. If you don't, then you have a serious issue. And I think our country has a serious issue.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Colin Kaepernick took a knee and sacrificed his whole NFL career. I didn't see one police officer back there sacrifice their $40,000 job, their 12-week training for something that's right. I like it was unbelievable. Like now I'm like wide awake right now. Like that's like unbelievable. Like I worked last night until 6 in the morning, and I'm out here. I could be here out all night again. I could be here tomorrow. I could be here the next day. I'm fighting for a change, man. I'm fighting for like money don't mean anything right now. I want to see a change. I want to see police officers take a knee. I want to see citizens take a knee. I want to see a president that does something. I want to see all that. I want to see a United States. Right now, all I see is states. I want to see a United States because right now it looks like a Civil War II's coming out. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you're home right now ignoring all this shit that's going on, there's something wrong with you, okay?
GG Boys Inc. That's what we call it.
Hey,
Boys Inc.
Lorenzo, you can hear
Boys Inc.
the passion from a lot of people here, and you can see the emotion. He got choked up. He had tears in his eyes, and I can see that from a lot of people here, and it's nice.
All right, Charlotte. You stay safe. We're going to give you a quick break. We need to take a break from our digital platforms here and go on over to update our folks on television. So you stand by for me, if you will, and we'll check in with you in just a minute.
Yes, you're running on the cut-in? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Lorenzo Hall at our WUSA 9 studios in Northwest Washington. We'll get back to the movie in just a minute, but we wanted to take a second to update you on some of what's happening in our nation's capital tonight. A number of the protests over the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis earlier this week. We've seen several protests throughout Washington tonight. They have been largely peaceful. But the city has enacted a curfew, which is set to go into effect at 11 o'clock tonight in about an hour and a half from now and stay in place until 6 a.m. Monday. Again, that curfew goes from 11 p.m. until 6 a.m. Monday. You're looking live outside of Lafayette Square right now. Our Charlotte McBride has been there for hours now, and we want to check in with her to get an update on the move there. What are you saying, Charlotte?
All right, Lorenzo, yeah, we are here right now in Lafayette Square, and you can hear the passionate people around me, a lot of people feeling a lot of things right now. We just spoke with one man who got very emotional. He had tears in his eyes because he's 22 years old, and he said seeing all of these people and seeing this right here means so much to him. We have seen peaceful protests for the most part tonight. Of course, we have seen things being thrown at the police, and then we did experience them releasing tear gas about half an hour ago, but really it's been mostly peaceful because people want peace in this country, Lorenzo.
Yeah, and I want to point out, if your photographer can kind of pan over for me and show the crowd behind you, because we do know that those protesters have been getting a lot closer to the White House tonight. That barrier set up by Secret Service was a little farther out when they started earlier in the morning. A lot of these protesters were in the street, but again, we do know they're getting a lot closer, and we've seen the National Guard, U.S. Park Police, as well as Secret Service forming that human shield to make sure these protesters do stay away. They're trying to prevent a repeat of what we saw in the district this time last night, when you did have a number of fires being set, bricks being thrown at some of these law enforcement officials out there on scene. But as of right now, Charlotte, as you were saying, it has been largely peaceful, aside from a few bottles being thrown, correct?
That's right. It really has been largely peaceful. And you did mention, though, a crucial point that a lot of this crowd was in the street, but now many of them are pushing towards those barricades and pushing closer and closer to the police. But, you know, as the crowd grows and swells, so does the number of police here. And we have seen many more police arriving on the lawn here, and as well as the National Guard. So more police have arrived, but also a lot more people here. And we do have that 11 p.m. curfew in place, but we're seeing a lot of new faces arrive right now. And again, more people than ever right here.
Yeah, we saw DC Police Chief Peter Newsham. He sent out a tweet earlier today showing him and I guess some of his officers as well out there interacting with the public this time around, because last night at least 11 DC police officers were injured during those protests. One officer had to undergo surgery after someone threw a brick at that officer, so an indication there of how tense it has been. We've seen businesses surrounding Lafayette Square in the business district in DC. They've been boarding up some of these businesses as well in anticipation of another violent night like we saw last night. But at this point, it has not reached that fever pitch. The temperature goes up and kind of goes back down occasionally. But unlike last night, these folks cannot stay out there until 2, 3 a.m.
That's right, Lorenzo. Yeah, there is that curfew in place, and we hope that it remains peaceful and that people will abide by that curfew, of course, and leave here when that 11 p.m. curfew comes in place. I have not seen any evidence of that yet. The only people that I have seen leave are people with small children and families. I would say right now, there are no children out here. There are no families with small children out here. So a lot of new people arriving here on scene, and a lot of new people kind of inching closer to that barricade tonight.
And Charlotte, while
so
we
will
have some
be
time
here, and we'll see.
I want to focus on the people there as well in those stories. We've heard some really emotional and heart-wrenching stories throughout the day, and I don't want that to get lost in the middle of this. Because you have people who want to make sure that we do want to apologize for the ignorance there in that case. But you do have some people who do want to get the message across that they want to end systemic racism, they want to end police brutality, and they also want more of America to speak out about this injustice.
That's right. You know, I think a lot of people here are here because they all have a message. And, you know, a lot of people we have talked to have their own personal story and their own reason of why they're out here. Right. And if they don't, they're here with a friend who does. And I think that that's pretty incredible to see people coming together like that, especially for their friends and family who have something personal with
All right,
this.
Charlotte, thank you so much. We'll be checking in with you throughout the night. We're going to keep monitoring these scenes throughout Washington tonight. And if you want to follow along, we will be on our WUSA 9 app and streaming on Facebook as well. But for now, we'll get you back to the movie. See you later.
This has been a special report from WUSA 9. For continuing coverage, go to WUSA9.com or download our mobile app.
Okay. All right, here we go. Those of you joining us on Facebook and our WUSA 9 app, as well as YouTube Live right now, we're back here outside of Lafayette Square. One of several protests that have taken place throughout the district today. You can see this one still remaining largely peaceful. These folks have about an hour and a half left until they got to get out of there, because DC does have a curfew in place. The mayor's order here going into effect at 11 o'clock tonight until 6 a.m. tomorrow. And again, you've seen people just kind of standing around there, just taking in the moment. perhaps supporting some of their friends there, other people chanting at police, calling for an end to, again, systemic racism, the injustices that we've seen, of course. While this moment was triggered, this recent protest was triggered by what we saw in Minneapolis just a couple of days ago involving George Floyd and several police officers. This is obviously a much deeper problem, and you hear that in a lot of the stories from people here today. So, while, yeah, George Floyd and what we saw with Christian Cooper in Central Park in New York at the beginning of the week or last week, it's sort of a culmination of a lot of things, a lifetime of events for some of the people there today. Our Charlotte McBride, she is there in the midst of it all. She's been talking to a number of the people there throughout the evening, and I want to get her perspective on how the mood and the temperature has changed over the last couple of minutes or so. Hey, Charlotte.
Hey, Lorenzo. Yeah, the chants have definitely picked up, and you can see more people behind me have kind of been packing in. We're seeing a lot of new faces and a lot more people arriving on bicycles, arriving on foot. Obviously not many cars here in this area, but more people are starting to show up, and it is getting a little more heated, especially up towards the barricade as the chants increase and, more people arrive. And they're seeing this for the first time. We've talked to people earlier today that were here when it was daylight and here when there were families around, and they have since left, and now we're kind of seeing a new wave come in here. And if you hear me choking up a little bit, it is because the tear gas that was released earlier is still very much here in the air, so it does make it hard to breathe, and that kind of still gets to you, and that's been lasting now for an hour or so. So obviously we hope that the police there that are behind that barricade do not have to release that tear gas again. We hope from now on that it is peaceful. It seems to be right now. It has its moments. I will say that. There are times where the crowd swells and it gets pretty intense, but then there are times where people are singing. I mentioned earlier that, they were singing songs, Lean on Me, and that was a pretty beautiful moment to hear an entire crowd of hundreds, thousands of people singing together.
Yeah, and what I find interesting too is a lot of the people there have found out about the protest through I want to give you a minute to get away from that. This area is giving me some bad vibes here, Charlotte. If you want to walk away for a little bit, kind of get away from this this group. I'm not sure what they have planned, but I just kind of see them eyeing the camera
and we can show you kind of we'll just show you a bigger view here. You can look down there and see kind of just the size of the crowd and the people are up front. We're not really hearing any chants right now, and no songs, nothing like that. So it's actually a pretty quiet crowd from what we've been hearing the last few minutes.
Sorry about that.
But again, it kind of it comes and goes, and as people arrive and new people arrive here tonight.
Then keeping people away from some of these buildings.
Yeah.
Or you would imagine maybe.
I am. Would you like to do an interview?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
I feel like you have something to say. Do you want to tell me why you're here?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, hold this for me, bro. Record this for me. We live.
Why are you here?
So basically, I'm here right now due to the simple fact I lost my cousin Brenda Williams May 28th, 2009 to gun violence from Scranton Police Department, where I'm originally from. And I want to be out here. I want to make a difference. I'm doing this peacefully. I'm not throwing rocks. I'm not looting. I'm not cursing. I'm not harassing the police. But at the end of the day, they need to know that we're here. The revolution shall be televised. And this is what it's all about, for sure.
It means something to you. I can hear that in your voice.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And I got this mask on. Like, I want to yell and do all types of things. But, none of that's gonna help, I feel like. But as long as we come together as a people, this is our world. This is our world, America. This is what it's about, for sure.
And you mentioned that you've just arrived here tonight to be peaceful. Why is that so important that this crowd remains peaceful for you?
Well, because I feel like violence isn't going to do anything. There's a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of fake news. They're going to show us throwing rocks. They're going to show us looting. They're going to show us acting like animals. But at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of people don't understand this. It comes from frustration, and everybody has their own, I'm just speechless right now. I'm just happy I'm a part of history. I'm happy I'm a part of history, but I'm out here for a good cause, and I want the world to know that. Look me in my eyes. This is what it's about, okay? For sure. Peace and love to everybody. Power to the people.
Thank you. Thank you
man.
so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, back
very
to the
powerful
point
message.
there.
You know, he has his cousin that he is remembering, and that he wants to be out here and promote peace with this. But a lot of things he said, wow, pretty powerful.
Yeah, and you know, on that same point, Charlotte, a lot of the people who were out there today that we talked to, they wanted to shift the narrative from what we saw last night. You know, a lot of people woke up this morning and they rarely heard George Floyd's name or some of the actual issues and some of the other problems. Instead, they saw the looting, they saw the tense confrontations with police. Oh, 1 second. Usually when the crowd does this, someone's having an encounter with police or they're getting a lot closer. They start chanting,
Yes.
hands up, don't shoot. So just for the folks at home, this is what we've been
Yes,
seeing
that's what
throughout the
they've been
day.
doing today.
Yeah,
That's
so-
right. That's
so-
exactly what they've been doing. When someone does have a confrontation with the police, or if someone's right up against the barricade, we do kind of see it then trickle back all the way through the crowd as they have been holding up their hands and saying, hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah, so they've been trying to shift this narrative from what a lot of us woke up to again, with the officers injured, the looting, some of the police cruisers set on fire. As we've seen this play out over and over again, that generally shifts the narrative, and these people who are protesting are called names, and their effort here is muddied because a lot of people are instead focused on the people who are committing these violent acts. So I know that different organizations throughout DC wanted to have these peaceful protests throughout the day, and they put peace in every invitation, every note, to make sure that the people who were there with a different agenda, perhaps a violent agenda, or people who are simply looking for attention or want to distract from the central message here, were not welcome. And it seems that as we've been watching this play out, yeah, you had the people there with their signs, chanting, or who are simply there and want to tell their stories.
Do you see that smoke?
One more time, Charlotte.
I don't know if you guys can see
Yeah, we
this
see that
from
in
our
the
camera,
background
but
there.
there's smoke. I don't know if you can see that. So it doesn't smell like the tear gas that we've seen, but we are seeing a heavy smoke, basically on the left side, more towards 16th Street and H, kind of encroaching on the lawn here. We're also seeing, though, right to the left of me, I'm going to have my cameraman, Kurt, turn it around here. It looks like a man has climbed on top of a car over here, and a crowd is starting to gather. So many of the people are actually going away from the White House and now circling this area right here. We're going to walk down H Street, but it looks like you have a man on top of a car. This is the only car that I have seen all day. Not really sure how this car got here. Someone is driving the car, and that is a little bit disturbing considering there is a crowd of people in front of it. So we're going to stand off up to the side. We're not going to stand in front of this
There we
vehicle,
go. For the
but it
people
is kind of
watching at
come
home, it's
barreling
right
in
there. It's a little dark,
on H
but
Street.
it's on the left
You can
side
kind
of
of
your
see.
screen. That sign is
I don't know if
blocking
you
our
can
view.
see.
There we go. Now we can see.
So now you can see a lot of people dispersing and running down 8th Street away from this vehicle. Really a lot of movement here, Lorenzo. At one point, kind of people were standing still next to the barricade.
What's up with the car, Charlotte?
I am
Is
not
that
sure
someone
how
driving
or
through,
why
or-
this car got here in the middle. It looks like it.
I wasn't sure if they were part
It
of the
looks like
protest or
there
had some
is a
signs
vehicle. I will say this, I have no idea how this car got through because all of these streets have been blocked for hours and all day long. So I am not sure how this
coming
car
up
got
onto
through. And it
11th
looks like
Avenue
H-Road
South,
here.
and we'll see if we can get a better look at where those cops went. They're blocking the backside, Nate, over there, of the backside of U.S. Bank Stadium, and of course we saw the bike cops move on Washington Avenue towards from downtown. Towards the 35W freeway system, but yeah, we're moving out to keep a safe distance
Looks
and
like
try
they
to
abandoned their
process
vehicle.
what we're watching.
Hey, Paul, I just want to make a real quick mention. You see the windshield there is cracked. That's actually, this was Christina Palladino's and a photojournalist Eli, their vehicle last night that was hit by a law enforcement canister. So that what you see right there on the windshield happened last night.
Back towards
It is
Lafayette
a rubber
Square,
bullet,
and that's
yeah,
kind
that
of where
hit,
people have
Christina
gathered,
Palladino's
but
group, the
pushed
very-
away from the barricade at this moment. Many people are now standing in the very center of the intersection at H Street and 16th. And it looks like kind of forming a big crowd right here in the middle of the road as more now head towards the barricade. So a lot of movement here, Lorenzo, a lot going on. And again, the crowd just continuing. And again, I can still breathing in that tear gas a little bit from earlier. So we did see some smoke earlier. We're not quite sure what that was, but we have not, again, seen any other types of things coming from the police. The chants are growing louder towards the barricade, though.
If your photographer, Kurt, can point toward the Hay Adams Hotel for us, because I want to talk about some of the businesses in D.C. which have opened up under Phase 1, a lot of the restaurants. You okay, Charlotte?
Excuse me. Yeah, I was standing. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a moment. It's okay. Take a minute to catch your breath. And if Kurt can pan over to the Hay Adams Hotel, I don't know if you can hear me, Kurt. That's Charlotte's photographer. They boarded up this hotel a little earlier today. I don't know if you can see some of the boards surrounding it right now. Over the windows, the bars there. They were worried because there was a fire, a structure right next to the White House, or next to the Hay Adams rather, last night. So a lot of businesses in this area started boarding up pretty early today, hoping they wouldn't have the same fate as some of their neighbors, some of the neighboring businesses in the area where people were seen looting, breaking into liquor stores, ice cream shops, T-Mobile stores, just stealing items, and if not, vandalizing some of those storefronts. So you did have some businesses being a little proactive there and making sure they were boarded up in anticipation of another night of these protests, which they assumed would turn violent. And Charlotte, there seems to be a little more movement here than we've seen over the last few minutes. Is it because of that?
There's a lot of movement, and people are. Yes, I believe so. So yeah, when we were standing, and you heard me coughing a little bit ago, as we get closer, there was more tear gas. So yeah, that's. I think that's why people have been dispersing a little bit. You're gonna have to excuse me, Lorenzo.
Oh, you're fine. Take a minute.
Yeah, so they did have the tear gas right in this area, and I think that's really had an effect on people kind of moving all around. People now have then gone back to the barricade because there isn't so much up there. So now you see, again, the problem of people moving back towards the barricade. It's getting very, very crowded up there by the barricades there. And again, as we've seen more and more police officers arrive then on the lawn, but more and more people are now pushing. Because I said earlier, Lorenzo, this area where I'm standing right here, it was packed with people. I couldn't be standing here unless I was right next to someone. So all of the people that were here on this street, they're now pushing that way towards the barricade, towards the White House.
Out of curiosity, that car still sitting there empty?
The car is still sitting there, and it's still empty.
Okay.
And there are no authorities around, no one that appears to try to move the car. So yeah, still a car sitting there, headlights on, flashers on, empty right here in the middle of H Street, and no word really on how it got there. It just arrived.
Now,
and the person abandoned their vehicle.
I need to point out for the people watching, you are at the tail end or behind this this protest. A lot of the people who are doing the chanting and maybe trying to get these officers'
We can take a little while.
Okay, it looks like we may be losing our Charlotte McBride there, her shot, but here's a more of a beauty shot, if you will, of the White House tonight. Really can't tell what's happening there in Washington based on this this picturesque image there. But surrounding that White House, you have a number of protesters there, as we've been seeing through Charlotte's shot there, who do want to see change, who are trying to remain peaceful, who are not trying to cause a lot of chaos in Washington tonight, which is what we did see last night. The mayor coming out this morning along with D.C. Police Chief Peter Newsham, saying that they understand and they empathize with the outrage of some of these protesters, but they urged people not to damage our city. As of right now, it seems like a lot of people are listening to the mayor. You've had people in these groups urging those who are antagonists to stay away, not to engage in some of that violent behavior. You see some people throwing bottles occasionally, but they, for the most part, they have remained peaceful. And really quickly, talking with the control room, one more time, what'd you say? I'm sorry, who am I speaking with? Oh, Council Member Vincent Gray. Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, sir.
Councilmember Gray, thank you so much for giving us some time tonight.
Sure.
First, I want to get your take on what you're saying play out in our city tonight.
And so we came to this corner, and it's really chaos. It's just really chaos because people are in the streets despite the curfew. I mean, there are police that are around here in OTR. You're looking up Vine Street right now. That's like the Vine Street Hill, so you can see some police cars in the distance. When I look at Liberty, you can also see some police cars there. But this section of Liberty, there are just people here. They're just out here. They're just standing out here. And people are just driving by, honking their horns and yelling expletives as well.
Yeah.
But they're also, as you clearly see, walking. And the police we saw coming, I don't know if they're heading to your location, but presumably everybody on the street right now could be subject to arrest.
Yeah. I get the feeling they'll take a hands-off.
It doesn't seem like people are concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty clear.
It doesn't seem like people are concerned about the curfew.
Well, and they're committed.
It doesn't seem.
You gotta respect people who are committed to a cause. Are they saying that they were part of the official protest, or can you tell the difference at this point, Walter?
I don't think they're a part of the official protest. I think these are people just here in the neighborhood who have come outside. Someone just threw a bottle or something at us. But I mean, you see a few people who have signs who you would like to think maybe came from the protest. But besides that, I just see people. We're gonna leave. People are throwing stuff at us.
Yeah, stay safe.
Get out of there.
Sounded a little.
Yeah.
And that's something that's certainly been changing over the days too. Our crews are increasingly facing danger, and you can listen to some of the comments directed at the media. This is just exploding.
Well, I think it is new, and yet it's not. I think you go all the way back to the 2000, a little bit before 2000, and you saw this distinct shift where people were taking frustration out on the media.
True.
And blaming the media for the message.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get on a soapbox, obviously, but we're just reporting what's happening.
Well, and Brad is ready to report. Brad, you're still on Liberty, and what's happening? Are you feeling a little safer, I hope, than Walter?
Yeah, they've closed off Liberty down there by the Shell. No one is able to continue westbound, but as we've been hearing all night, the horns have not stopped here on Liberty as people are hanging out their cars with their hands up. We were trying to move towards the flashing lights that are further down the next couple of blocks here on Liberty, just past the Ezra Charles mural. But I did get to, he didn't stop, they kept going, but I did just see about 2 minutes ago City Manager Patrick Duhaney sitting shotgun inside an unmarked police car, an SUV that is cruising through the area. So that's at least one city leader that we have seen tonight here on Liberty, cruising through to get a first-hand look of what's happening.
So it's very clear, at least from my vantage point, that it shifted to what I'll just loosely call rolling protests in the car. At least that's from my vantage point. I know you're right down there in the thick of it. But that does, Brad, present certain challenges for police in dealing with this, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we're seeing, the whack-a-mole kind of, for lack of a better term, their effort here tonight. As we try to move from one problem to the next, they're doing the same. We saw just up Vine Street, north of Liberty, another person being detained. Not sure what that is about, if it's strictly curfew related and being warned repeatedly and not complying, or if something else happened in that particular stretch. But as you can hear, the helicopters continuing to circle over this particular area here in Over the Rhine as police continue to block off more streets. We're at Republican Liberty.
It's interesting. On Friday night, Councilman Jeff Pastor joined us, and he was calling on the city to be calm and was saying violence is not a way, or aggression is not a way to get the message across. I haven't heard too many other cries from public officials. Perhaps I just didn't hear it. I don't know at the demonstrations this afternoon. But in Columbus, we had pastoral meetings and gatherings, and I'm not seeing that here. Maybe I just am not seeing it. I don't know if it's happening.
Well, I'm sure they're happening. No one in any community wants it to turn violent, and obviously this isn't violent.
No.
This is a bit of chaos with cars.
True.
But if there's any positive sign right now from my seat, is we saw it on Friday night when you were here, and managing that level of chaos and that level of disruption, to last night. Obviously scary. Yeah. Obviously some very, very difficult moments.
We did have a police officer whose helmet was hit with a bullet.
Yes, with the
that could have been
gunfire.
A fatal situation last night. But fortunately, this has been the calmest night. To recap, so it was right about 9 o'clock when the curfew. Well, when the curfew starts at 9 o'clock, everyone was supposed to be off the streets. There were people gathered at the Hamilton County Courthouse. And by about 10 minutes into it, they had pretty much cleared that area, and then it moved.
This is the courthouse, I believe, earlier today. Is that correct? Just before 9 o'clock, and as James Pilcher was talking about, that's a lot of tear gas.
They used to, and one of our photographers actually was tear gassed. He's fine. Kept shooting right after. In fact, that's his camera work right there. Yeah. And then that crowd, it was gone within about 10 minutes after that started. And we thought, well, maybe everyone has pretty much left the area, but they really didn't. They moved a few blocks down.
It's a different tactic as well with police tonight, in that they waited. The first night, obviously, very long. Last night, 20 so minutes with taunts and throwing objects.